My entitled mom demands that I no longer see my boyfriend until he loses a significant amount of weight. She even says that he needs to report in how much he's losing in order for us to even be allowed to see each other. But now I'm honestly so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend for close to 5 years now. And since the first time my mom met him, she simply just didn't like him. The reason was because he's on the plump side, meaning that he's overweight, and he's just a really chill guy. The first time they met, she asked him about his hobbies, and he replied casually about how he likes to eat, which is something he really does, and he likes to cook too. I was still in school then, but all expenses were paid on my own. Since then, she would barge into my room at random hours, scolding, shouting, and forcing me to break up. But I refused to budge, and had always tried to reason out with her. That is, until she came up with an ultimatum. She said he needs to lose about 15 kilograms in a year, or we would have to break up. And during this time, we can't see each other. My boyfriend and I tried to even negotiate the terms, but no means no. She said we would have to abide by the rules as this proves his sincerity to me, and then once he reaches the goal, she will finally shut up. During this period, I had frequent quarrels started by her, really affecting my mental health. I told her I was not doing well mentally, and she said that I was faking it. And while I didn't really agree, I had no choice. We still met just secretly, but my boyfriend was still working to lose the weight. We would also have to report the weight loss progress to her, and she would sometimes say that his progress is so slow and that if she were him, she would lose it off as quickly as possible. Fast forward to today, and he lost the weight, but she still criticizes me, calls me horrible names, talks about me behind my back, and about my relationship. I'm going to family counseling, but it isn't helping that much because mom thinks that she is in the right and that she feels I was going down the wrong path and she can just sit by and watch me suffer. After expressing my dissatisfaction with this, she said she's only saying the truth, so why am I so upset? And with that, I'm kind of low contact with her, but my dad has been saying that this isn't how a daughter should be with her mother, trying somehow to get us to reconcile. But I've lost respect for her and a desire to reconnect. Any attempt at conversation may result in her screaming and wailing until the wee hours of the night, crying and saying that I've bullied and mistreated her, and all this other garbage. So right now, I'm not talking to her, but please, if there's something that I did wrong, or if there's some way I can improve this, I would love to hear what that is, because honestly, right now, I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your mom's crazy. Seriously, who in their right mind would be like, okay, 25-year-old daughter, you can't see your boyfriend who's also like, what, 29? All because he's overweight. And the fact that she set up this stipulation of him losing like, what, 15 kilograms a year, just so you two can be together, like that is crazy in my opinion. And I'm really shocked that you even agreed to that in the first place, because this is not a normal request. It is incredibly intrusive and just cruel. Because you know what? So what if he's a little overweight and he likes to eat? He clearly likes to cook. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So for your mom to say the things that she did, that is so uncalled for, and I really hope you're able to move out sooner than later, because I could not imagine living with someone as unhinged as the person you're describing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My family absolutely despises my boyfriend, despite the fact that he checks every box I could possibly ask for in having a good relationship. And now I feel like I'm going crazy as they are constantly hounding me about this, leaving me in a really tough spot because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to give a bit of backstory, my boyfriend and I have been together for a little over 6 years. We are both in our mid-20s and we have a cute little apartment, a dog, and both have stable jobs. It has not always been that way, as we have both navigated a lot of changes within ourselves, as well as job loss, sickness, etc. So basically, your 20s can be really hard. Due to all of this, we just decided to take some time before getting married and settling down. Both of us are content with the decision, as we feel that we are super happy with the dynamic right now and just aren't ready for kids or the whole song and dance. Anyways, my parents have always liked him. Well, that is, up until about a year ago, during a family beach trip, when they suddenly decided he was too quiet and that his jokes are offensive, and that according to them, he will never commit to me, all amongst a ton of other things they've said. I mean, they were horrible to him. They ignored him, my dad was super rude and standoffish, and I ended up having to pry everything out of them rather than them just being upfront. I noticed that all of the problems sort of manifested once my sister started bringing her more loud, outgoing man into the picture. Things with my family have been super tense ever since then, and I backed up a ton as I felt their behavior was awful. My dad is simply awful to him, and it's always my boyfriend's fault. My sister hopped on board, and they all had this big intervention with me, trying to tell me that I deserve better. They dove very heavily into my boyfriend's family, they analyzed his parents, parents and their relationship, etc. My sister also likes to send me TikToks and things like, "Oh, you deserve better," as somewhat of a dig. My mom is somewhat of a narcissist, as she never apologizes or anything, and she's always the victim. So it's like no matter what I say, I wronged her by taking a step back and cutting a lot of contact for my own mental well-being. But here's the kicker. I'm extremely happy. My boyfriend and I have a great relationship. We have never had any reason to believe that one of us was treating the other poorly in any way, and he is incredible with me. He listens, he provides advice and support, cheers me on in my goals, among so much more. And I have no fear that we will have a long future together. But my family cannot seem to grasp any of it and refuse to believe me. I just don't understand. We have the type of relationship where we jokingly pick on each other, and it has always been that way. But they truly believe that it's awful in nature. I also don't understand why it's their business to be involved in any timeline on marriage or kids. My friends love him and his family is amazing. I just have this constant shadow because my family is so against the relationship. They claim that they're not up my butt, but they analyze everything that he does. And I'm honestly not so sure where to go. Has anyone ever dealt with this before? What was your ticket to get them off your back? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this is so toxic because my God, these people are all over you about this relationship as if they've got any skin in the game. And it sounds like they don't like him because this guy is just quieter than the obnoxious boyfriend that your sister has. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? People are allowed to be quiet and introverted. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. Like, come on. So truly, I don't blame you for cutting contact with them, and hopefully this gets better over time because clearly you know that you have a good relationship with your boyfriend. And the fact that your family doesn't see that is honestly on them, and that is nothing that has to do with either of you. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I don't want his mom coming with us on our vacation? Because despite the fact that I told him well in advance that I don't want this, he decided to ignore me and invite her anyways. And at this point, I'm worried that our vacation is practically ruined. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, last year my mother-in-law was having financial struggles and was going to be let go from her job. Her two daughters didn't offer to help out, but my husband, being the kind man that he is, and with my okay, told her that she could always move out to the West Coast where we live. So she agreed, and she brought her 4 dogs and a bunch of her stuff and crammed it into our tiny 2-bedroom house. So in this house, there were 3 adults, 6 dogs, and a 6-year-old, and we're expecting a baby in the fall. As of a few months ago, my sister-in-law wants to move out here, and we explained that they should find their own place. We've looked at selling, but the markets are in no place for that. But if it was just my husband and our kid, we would make it work. And when the baby's old enough, they can share a room until we can sell this house. We were planning to go on one last vacation before the baby comes, and I made it clear that I wanted it to just be the 3 of us. My husband said it would be rude to not invite her, and so he invited her anyways. I was hoping because of her dog she wouldn't go, but now she's making us talk to our neighbors, who we are friendly with, about watching her dogs, with her saying that she will also pay to make that happen. Well, I was mad, and pregnancy hormones make it hard to hide my frustration. My husband told me I'm acting like a brat because if it was my mom, I would do the same thing, but I told him I wouldn't because my mom would understand, whereas his mom just simply wouldn't understand. She believes that he can do no wrong, and she believes that she's entitled. I mean, this is the same person who got angry when we went on a trip that we planned before she moved here and didn't invite her. We can't even have discussions with her because she instantly gets defensive. I really just wanted a trip away from her with my little family before this baby comes, and I'm apparently the bad guy and being selfish. He told me that I could be the bad guy and tell her that I don't want her to go, but I already told him this before he invited her, and it's not my mom. I'm not the one with boundary issues. So am I the jerk for telling him to tell her that we don't want her to come? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all because this really was laid out well before he even began to talk to her. Like, he knew what you wanted and he still ignored it and said, "You can come along, mom, don't worry about it." So for him to be like, you can be the bad guy, I'm not gonna do it. It's like, dude, you already knew about this in the first place. Is this guy seriously trying to kick the can down the road and be like, oh, this isn't my problem? Because guess what? It is your problem. You're the one that did this and you're about to ruin this vacation for everybody. So no, you're not the jerk because in my opinion, this problem absolutely falls on your husband's shoulders. My toxic, entitled older coworker is constantly making comments about the women around them by saying that they look tired and that they need more sleep. But after listening to these insults for so long, I finally snapped and decided to put him in his place, as I shut this guy down in a way that he truly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've worked with this older man for about 2 years now, and I've told him so many times that it is rude to make a comment on someone's appearance that they can't change within 5 seconds. We work in retail and he is a cashier, and I'm a shift manager. He only ever makes that comment towards women, and I have never in the past 2 years heard him make any comment towards a man man's appearance. He thinks that he is just making small talk, but it comes off incredibly rude. And I pointed out to him every time I hear it, and it still hasn't stopped. And it's not just that he's saying something like, "Oh, you look really tired." He's saying, "Whoa, you look really tired. Looks like it's time for someone to go to bed. You look like you could really use some sleep. You can see you have dark circles under your eyes." And like he just keeps going and going. Whenever I hear it happening, I will address it immediately after the customer leaves, but he just always says that he didn't mean anything by it. I've brought it up to my boss before, but he just excuses it as this guy being old, and then he doesn't do anything about it. Well, yesterday when I got to work, this old guy says to me, "Looks like someone didn't get enough sleep last night. You feeling tired today? You look really tired." I then spoke to him as if he was a child. I said to him, "What have I told you about making comments about people's appearances that they can't change within 5 seconds? You are rude. That is a rude thing to ask me or anyone else. Stop asking me or other women if they're tired. Even if I am, it's none of your business. Do you understand?" For context, when he made this comment to me, we were at the front end of the store, and when I responded to him, I did get a bit loud because it's been 2 years of me repeating the same thing, and I'm honestly so over it. So later that night, he asked me, "Why did you scold me in front of the entire store?" And I honestly just couldn't take it, and I'm seriously hoping he retires soon because this guy is too much to deal with. Oh man, that's super weird. It sucks that the boss isn't doing anything about it because he's clearly targeting women, and that is really creepy. So yeah, I don't blame you for shutting this guy down because if I was in your shoes, I honestly would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not paying for a new appliance in a shared household, despite the fact that that appliance came with me when I first moved in? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 25-year-old female, and I live with 2 other roommates, a 22-year-old male and a 26-year-old female, and we have lived together for over a year with no issues. Little things came up here and there, the usual vibe of needing something cleaned up, but honestly nothing dramatic. Now, I purchased a countertop air fryer before moving in with them in another apartment on my own, and it obviously came with me to the new place. I never said no to anyone using it because I felt guilty with the counter space it took up, and it was already in my possession as long as they kept it clean. Well, fast forward a year, and one of my roommates has broken it by putting her dinner in on the highest temperature, all while she went and took a shower, thus overheating it. At first I was kind of like, well, things break, so whatever, but now they're saying that I need to help pay for a replacement by putting in a third of the cost. Now truly, I'm usually the type to swallow this and just pay, but I'm also a bit annoyed here because my appliance has been broken. I'm out like $100 and on the hook for 30 more to replace it. And by the way, this is my appliance. So am I the jerk for having an issue, or am I right to ask them to replace it 50-50, where I would have to have no share in the cost for the new one? Especially when realistically, I would argue that those that break things should at least apologize and then offer to replace it. What should I do? Okay, I've got to be honest. The second you or anybody else breaks something or has something of yours broken, the person that broke it has to replace it. Period. End of story. That is the way that it is. Because right now, it seems like they're trying to frame this as if this is the apartment air fryer, but that is literally not the case. It's your air fryer. You're the one that brought it with you when you moved in. So why on earth should you have to pay for something that you didn't break that was belonging to you? Because honestly, whoever broke it is the person that should be on the hook, and they shouldn't be buying it so that they can have some kind of claim over it. They should be buying it to replace the one they broke that you owned. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to pay for it because obviously this was your property to begin with. And the fact that they're trying to make you pay for it, in my opinion, is super toxic. Am I the jerk for calling my sister irresponsible and refusing to help her after she demands that I pay groceries for her and her 10 kids for the next several months? Because after I said that she was irresponsible for having that many kids, my parents and my sister are now pissed off at me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have an elder sister who's 38 years old, along with 3 other siblings. We were raised in an ultra-Christian household where we had to go to church, girls had to dress extremely modestly, and we were homeschooled and all that. I left the religion when I was 20, and I became more of an atheist, and 2 of my other siblings left as well. But my oldest sister, the one that's 38, and my younger one who's 29, stayed in the religion. My older sister is really hardcore into it, and basically she's even more religious than my parents. She thinks that women shouldn't wear pants and that the moon landing was faked and all that. She married a husband with similar beliefs, and now they have 10 freaking kids together, and I mean 10 of them. And I personally think that having that many kids is unethical, considering our overpopulation and the climate crisis. I think 3 should be the max, but I never really commented much because I knew that she would never listen to me. But my main issue was that she didn't have money to give those kids a comfortable life, and neither she nor her husband are rich at all. Because of that, their kids do not have a good quality of life. They rarely ever get to go on any trips or spend individual time with their parents. They last went on a trip 3 years ago, and that was simply to a water park. The kids have barely any privacy, and the older kids have to help with the younger ones a lot. The kids also literally have to share their clothing with siblings who can wear them, so they don't really even have their own clothes. And trust me, there are multiple other issues there, but I don't want to get into it that much. My sister was recently venting about all of this and about how her older kids don't like her Christian rules or having to share clothing or take care of their younger siblings. She then asked me if I can buy her groceries for a few months as they've been having money issues lately. Well, I told her that I would not give her any money and that it was her fault that she was in this position. She spent so much time being pregnant, so she really couldn't work that much, meaning that she was stuck with a low-paying service job. Her husband makes a lot more, but it still isn't enough to raise 10 kids without relying on welfare. I told her all of this and she got really upset and said I was judging her personal choices. But honestly, I do judge her. I've spent time with her kids and they're often neglected, and they often complain about how they don't have anything compared to their friends and how their rules are so strict. I told my sister that she was an irresponsible person for having so many kids despite not making near enough money to raise them properly. My parents are now mad at me for judging her for not being a degenerate, career-oriented person. And at this point, I'm honestly wondering if I might be the jerk, because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It seems like this is some tough love that your sister clearly needs to hear. For starters, being career-oriented doesn't mean you're a degenerate. It is horrible that they're trying to generalize in that way, but it honestly kind of gives a peek into what you dealt with growing up. And to that end, I can only imagine what your sister's like. But if I'm being completely honest, I think you're right. She had way too many kids. They can't even afford to have 5 kids, let alone 10. And now she's trying to be like, oh wow, why don't my older kids want to also be parents? Why are they upset that they have nothing? This is so unfair. Can you pay for my groceries? Like, dude, hold on a second. This is not my problem. Why on earth is the original poster responsible for your choices? This is honestly so backwards, and I just don't blame you for being annoyed. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and your sister is 100% at fault. Am I the jerk for asking my stepmother to give me back my birth certificate, as well as all the other paperwork that I might need as an adult? Because right now she is very pissed off at me, saying that I'm being a stingy human being and that I'm ruining everything by taking my papers away from her. And at this point, I'm very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so after a couple of weeks of staying with some of my family, namely my stepmom and my siblings, I asked my stepmom to give me my birth certificate. I wanted to keep my documents with me back home in case of an emergency. As she opened the folder where she keeps my papers, I noticed there was about 4 copies of it, my high school diploma, some vaccine records, and other personal papers. She was handling the folder and going through them, and if I asked for one, she would think a little and then hand it to me, or ask me, oh, you need this, and then hand it to me. So I managed to get some courage, and I asked her calmly to give me everything, all of my papers. Now she wanted to keep 1 copy, but I said I want to take all of them. I also noticed by then that she was keeping 2 copies of my naturalization papers, namely my citizenship papers, over to the side and out of the folder. It felt like she wanted to keep those too, but you know what? I took them as well. She then got really emotional, and in our language, she basically said that I'm being stingy and that I'm skimping on her. I stayed calm and I explained I just want to keep my papers and that me and my husband agreed to bring back our documents and put them together. She then raised her voice. She sounded very upset and like she was about to cry. My hands were shaking at this point because she low-key scares me a lot, but I stayed calm and I said I hear her, but I'm still taking them. Well, she's now more upset, and so my sister and her kid intervened. My stepmom said that I must think that she wants to do something bad with it, but I said no. My sister explained that it's mine and asked why she needs my birth certificate, and she said that she could need it for lots of things. For starters, she says she needs it in case she divorces my dad for whatever paperwork there might be. Also, if my dad passes away and the house they live in needs to be split between the kids, then she supposedly is going to need that paperwork for that as well. Part of me kept pushing, though firmly and calmly, because I don't want anyone to have my documents and because I felt that I should push myself to stand up to her for what I think is mine. In the end, she said something like, fine, take it all, I don't want anything, but if you need something for paperwork, we won't have it. Anyway, she's very upset and I'm very scared, and she's my ride to the airport tomorrow. So seriously, did I make a mistake, or am I the jerk for getting my paperwork away from her? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, no, this is an easy one because your stepmom sounds insane. For starters, no, this is your paperwork, and from the sounds of it, you don't sound like a child. It sounds like you're an adult and you have every right to have access to your paperwork. So the fact that she's trying to hold on to it, in my opinion, is kind of a stupid point. You deserve to have everything on your person, especially your citizenship paperwork. Like seriously, why does she have that? If I was in your shoes, I would absolutely make sure I have that. Both digital and physical copies. That is the last thing you want to lose, like seriously, especially considering today's political climate. And also, it kind of comes off as really suspicious the way she's like, I need this in case your dad dad dies or I get a divorce. And it's like, well, wait a second. Nobody was thinking about that until you said something. Like, I don't know about you, but it's almost like she was showing her hand as if she was banking on one of those things happening. And it's like, okay, that's a weird thing to say, but sure, go for it. So to that end, I think there might be a chance where she divorces your dad, or there might be a chance where like something happens to your dad and you gotta split the house between everybody. But on a serious note, I'm glad that you stood up for yourself, especially towards your stepmother, who clearly is an intimidating person. I can understand feeling hesitant and feeling like, oh man, I can't possibly do this. But instead of backing down, you stuck with it and you got it done. Because in my opinion, all of those papers should have gone to you the second you became an adult. And the fact that she tried to keep them away from you, in my opinion, is not only incredibly sketchy, but also very uncalled for. My entitled boss demands that I never take a bathroom break, claiming that anytime I'm away from my position, I'm inadvertently causing massive delays in our restaurant. But after dealing with this for so long and feeling so stressed out and so incredibly busy, I'm finally at my breaking point, and right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I work in a food hall and I take on average one restroom break a day, and I try to go when it's not immediately busy. Obviously, if I had to go to the bathroom and I can't hold it any longer, then I'll go, but I always try to help customers that are clearly ready to order. One of the biggest issues is that customers are incompetent and never read the posted sign which states that I'm away and will return in a certain amount of time. It is usually less than the time I post, but never over, and they then assume that no one is stationed there, and as the kitchen speaks no English, they can't assist the customer, so they call the business number, which goes directly to my boss. My boss started to blow up with text messages asking where I was and that there were customers waiting to order, but the thing is, only one person was there that had already ordered, and it honestly overall just seemed pretty calm. I told my boss that I was going to the bathroom, and when I left, it was completely quiet, and I had already cleared all the orders and I saw no one waiting. He then proceeded to say that it's been an ongoing issue that only I've been causing, as no one else is keeping customers waiting for extended periods of time. I then simply questioned whether I'm allowed to use the restroom, and it was almost a gaslighting response of him, saying that none of the other employees basically use the restroom in a fashion where customers are held up. I said that I do my best to make sure none are nearby if I can hold it, and if they come up when I'm gone, and they don't see the sign and proceed to call him, then that's kind of on them. Now, I even suggested that we make it more obvious with the signs we use, but he said that the sign is irrelevant, and the fact that I'm gone using the restroom is the real problem. Now, at this point, I'm trying to get some kind of second opinions on who's in the wrong here, as I'm still under the assumption that the employees are allowed to use the restroom, and he seems to be arguing otherwise. Because despite me telling him that I use it when it's slow and no one's at the counter, even if it's during our busier hours, he just tells me that I'm the only one making customers call him to complain. This isn't the first time that my boss has done something like this, and pretty recently he gave everybody COVID at the company party and then berated me because I refused to come in on a shift as I was still COVID positive with symptoms, and I called out that day despite him knowing that I was still battling it. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not really sure how to proceed as we keep going back and forth, and he ended up telling me that maybe this job isn't a good fit for me if I'm unable to stay at the counter without leaving. I mean, I was kind of dumbfounded when responding to him because he was actually insinuating that no other employee has ever gone to the bathroom that can potentially have customers looking to order, which by the way can literally be any time. I mean, it was very clear that I can only go when all other orders are cleared and while no one is hovering around waiting to order. But my boss keeps arguing the most basic points, and now I feel like I'm going crazy and I seriously don't know what to do. If your boss seriously is acting like this just because you're going to use the bathroom real quick, then in my opinion, it's probably not a bad idea to find another job. Like, this guy seriously is out of his mind if he thinks you stepping away for what, 5 minutes is going to cause all these problems? Like, for starters, it's pretty obvious to me that this is one of those managers that likes to manage their business from home. They're the kind of person who would take long naps in the afternoon while you're slaving away trying to get things done at their business. And if you stepping away for 5 minutes is really throwing him for a tailspin, then honestly, he is definitely the one with the problem. Because if this guy really wants to deny you having a bathroom break at any point during the day, then that is not only the mark of a terrible manager, but also that's the mark of a terrible work environment. Like, the obvious solution is maybe having him come in and cover that shift or something like that, or hiring more staff who can help out up front. Like, it is literally not fair for you to be so busy, but also be the scapegoat when things don't go right. I know exactly where you're coming from with that, and honestly, you do not deserve that garbage. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be looking for another job. I would find something that actually respects you as a human being and doesn't try to force you into working without having a bathroom break. Because the way this guy is talking is crazy, and you absolutely do not deserve that treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend doesn't understand the concept of a white elephant exchange, and as a result, throws a temper tantrum when things don't go her way. And as a result, I've officially blocked her from Facebook and on my phone, and I haven't talked to her ever since. Here's what happened. Okay, so this all happened almost 10 years ago, but after spending all morning reading stories online, I felt like I should share my own experience. So at the time, I was a 30-year-old male, and for years, I was close friends with a woman we will call Brittany. Brittany is not her real name. Brittany and I had gone to college together, we had gone on trips together, and we were pretty much inseparable. She had always had a bit of an entitled streak to her, but it was never anything drastic. She usually kept it restrained to things like being the only one to pick which restaurant our group of friends went to, or having her seat in each friend's home. It was annoying, sure, but it was pretty mild overall. That is, until Christmas came along. A mutual friend of ours decided to hold a Christmas get-together for our large extended friend group, which included both me and Brittany. This friend, we'll call Mary, also not her real name, had recently gotten married and bought a new house with her new husband. We'll call the husband Matt for the sake of the story, also not his real name. Mary's wedding had been a small, private, family-only affair. To celebrate with friends, as well as celebrate their new house and the holiday, Mary invited about 30 people from our extended friend group to a big Christmas party. And honestly, it was wonderful. Mary has always been a wonderful cook, and she insisted on providing everything for the guests. She did all of the cooking, bought a ton of drinks, and made sure that none of her guests were without a drink or a plate of amazing food all night. Now, Mary had only one request from each guest. Each person must bring a gift to contribute to a white elephant gift exchange. Well, happily, especially given how much Mary and Matt shelled out to feed us all, we all bought a gift. For those not familiar with white elephant exchanges, this involves everybody bringing a wrapped gift. Then, one by one, each person chooses a gift from the pile. The first person opens his or her chosen gift, then the second person can either open a new gift or steal the first person's gift. The third can steal the second's or the first gift or even pick a new one. And it goes on until everyone has had their chance. Then the first person gets the last chance to steal. One rule put in place in a lot of these exchanges is that a gift can only be stolen twice. So if you are the third person to get their hands on the gift, it is yours for good, and no one can take it from you. And unfortunately, this was the downfall of Mary's gift exchange. At least when it comes to Brittany, that is. The gift exchange started and people were just having fun stealing blankets and candles and gift cards, and this is all amongst friends. I mean, no one was upset if their gift was stolen. I mean, it really was all for fun, and we were all friends, right? Well, Matt, Mary's husband, was really good at making his own beer, and as a gift in the exchange, he wrapped up a full case of his amazing dark stout that he made. One of our friends named Bob opened that gift and was excited, and we all knew how amazing the beer was, as we had all been drinking it all night at the party. Then our other friend Tim stole the beer from Bob, and we all just laughed about it. Bob was disappointed, but he gave it over to Tim in the spirit of the game. Then it was my turn, so I stole the beer from Tim, and just like Bob, Tim was disappointed, but he willingly gave me the beer and laughed along with his disappointment. Now, it's important to note that I was the third owner of the case of beer. That means that per the rules of Mary's game, I was saved from having the beer stolen from me. Well, it was Brittany's turn to go next, and she tried to steal the beer, but was reminded by several people that the beer had been stolen twice, so it was now officially mine. Instead of just picking a new gift or stealing someone else's, Brittany literally threw a fit. She started to say out loud, "All the other gifts suck, that is not fair. The beer's the only thing that I want. I would not have played if I knew this stupid rule." And she went on and on making comments like this. She was making everybody uncomfortable, especially Mary. Matt intervened and politely asked Brittany to just play along. He reminded her that there were still a few bottles of stout in the kitchen if she really wanted one. But no, Brittany just couldn't handle not having the full case to take home with her. She pouted and refused to pick another gift or play the game. So we just skipped her. The game continued on and everybody other than Brittany had a gift. With only one gift left, Brittany was forced to take that or nothing. She ended up choosing nothing and on top continued to complain about how unfair the rules were. The person who bought the unclaimed gift ended up taking it back and gave gave it to Mary and Matt as a housewarming gift. And once Brittany saw that, she stormed out and left. Now, I really thought that would be the end of it, but trust me, I was completely wrong. Over the next few days, I was blasted with text messages from Brittany demanding that I give her the case of Matt's beer. She didn't ask if I would share it, which I probably would have done. She demanded that I give it to her outright. She actually said to me, "You know the rules were stupid and it should have been mine." Now, when I told her no, she started to give me a guilt trip. She said to me, "You make more money than me, so you can buy expensive beer and I can't. I mean, we've been friends for so long, it's only right, because right now you're being really selfish." Eventually, the final message she sent me was telling me that she hopes I choke on the beer. Well, after that, I blocked her number, I removed her from my Facebook friends list, and I haven't spoken to her since. And I'm not the only one. Mary, Matt, and about 1/3 of the entire party have completely cut contact with Brittany. She lost a lot of friends all over a case of beer. And you know what? For the record, it was really good beer. And I thought about Brittany every single time I drank a bottle. Wow, Brittany in this story absolutely sounds super obnoxious. And I seriously can't stand personality types like this, where they are so entitled and narcissistic that if they're not having fun, then guess what? Nobody can have fun. Suddenly, the game's gonna be over because they're having a bad time, or because they feel slighted in some kind of way. Like, she very easily could have just played along and picked something else, but instead threw a temper tantrum like a child and ruined the atmosphere for everybody at that party. Like, this is a grown woman, by the way. This is someone in their 30s acting like that. Like, I can't imagine being that old and that petty and weird and still trying to call yourself an adult. Like, seriously, that's so weird. And this wasn't some extreme situation. This was literally a gift exchange with friends. Like, this was supposed to be like a nice get-together for Matt and Mary for their new home, but here comes Brittany acting like an insufferable psychopath. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it's a bad thing that Brittany is cut out of your life, because based on the way she acts, I'm surprised she even has friends in the first place. So you know what? Good for you for cutting her off and knowing when to get out, because that lady was seriously entitled, because she would rather destroy her entire friend group than actually go along with a party game that isn't in her favor. And that kind of behavior, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for refusing to hand over my college fund just so my little sister can get a surgery? Because right now, my parents are really guilt-tripping me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 17-year-old male, and I'm the oldest kid in my family. My parents have 2 biological kids, me and my 12-year-old sister, and they adopted my 4 other siblings. I had dozens of foster siblings over the years as well. My parents have struggled to make time and have the money for all of us, so that has meant a lot of sacrificing, and that has mostly been on my part. My parents were able to make sure all my younger siblings had at least one activity outside of school to do, but they never did that for me. I was forced to play football when I was 5 years old, but by the time I was 7, my parents had started fostering, and I was no longer doing that. And my siblings all get to do something that they like. Whether that's dance or music, there's always something for everybody else. The younger kids were all prioritized with school field trips, so they always got to go, while I haven't since I was 6 years old. The last time I asked was when I was about 9, and my parents told me to work for the money to pay for it. Well, my grandparents found out what they said and gave me the money, but my parents took it off of me to use for the household, and my grandparents were so mad at them for that. They delayed my tonsil surgery by 2 years because they prioritized 2 foster kids and 2 of my sibling surgeries over mine. Well, my grandparents saw how much I was getting the short end of everything with my parents, and they decided to set up a college fund for me. It is a lot of money, and it really caught me off guard. And my parents know about it, but they can't access it. And they only know about it because of a fight with my grandparents over the lack of saving for my future when they have saved something for my siblings. My parents said the money my grandparents saved should be divided equally because $350,000 is a lot to save for one grandchildren when you have multiple. Now, that money is still there, and I do have plans for it, but my youngest sister is 5 years old, and she needs a pretty major stomach surgery. She's had a lot of health trouble since her birth, and my parents have paid a lot of money on her medical expenses. They were told this surgery could turn her life around, and it would give her a chance at living with less pain and stomach complications. It could also give her a more normal childhood because she can't do a lot. They don't have the money for the surgery, and they want me to give them the money to pay for it and for the expenses afterwards. They said they need $270,000 for the whole thing, and that maybe they can give me some of it back, but they might need even more if stuff gets more complicated. Well, when I told them that they cannot have that money, they lost it. They told me I was being selfish, and I argued that they take from me all the time. I asked why they didn't take the money they save for all my siblings and use that, and why does it always have to be mine? But they said I'm putting college before my sister's future, and they accused me of being unwilling because she's my sister through adoption and not because she's my biological sister. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? For starters, I think your parents are being very dishonest with you because this money probably isn't even yours yet. I'm kind of convinced that the only reason they're going to you instead of your grandparents is because they know for a fact they're not going to get a penny from your grandparents. But if they can guilt trip you into feeling bad about your sister needing surgery, then maybe you could get the money from your grandparents and give it to them. They're basically treating you like a middleman, and they're making this your fault. But here's the fact of the matter. Not only are you not the jerk, but your parents are awful parents. They can barely take care of their biological children, let alone be a foster parent to 4 more children, or even the adopted one that they also have. Like seriously, why are they having so many kids in their home? Especially if they're gonna be neglectful towards some of them. Like in my opinion, that is a bigger problem than you having money for college. And you know what? You've got it right. You have absolutely gotten the short end of the stick on just about everything. And it's simply unfair for you to once again have to sacrifice your future all because your parents are not making correct choices. Because honestly, that debt is in their name. And just because you have money available for college doesn't mean that you should have to bail them out of making payments for the rest of their lives. Like that is their duty as parents, and that does not fall on your shoulders at all. And in my opinion, I really don't think you're the bad guy by saying, no, I'm not going to give you this money. There are so many options for them for getting that money paid off, as well as several hospitals and organizations that would be more than happy to provide medical care for very cheap rates, or in some cases, just outright free. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your parents are very selfish, and I think it's awful that they're seriously trying to drag you down this route once again, because I guarantee you, you will never see that money ever again if you give it to them, because in their eyes, they only see you as someone that they can take from. So for you to put your foot down and say that enough is enough, that in my opinion is a great step forward, and hopefully they get the message and you're able to move forward with your life. Am I the jerk for calling my step-sibling suffocating, as well as refusing to participate in a family vacation because of that? Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad got married to Elizabeth 4 years ago. Elizabeth is not her real name. I was spending equal amounts of time with both my mom and dad, and the custody schedule was me swapping houses every single week. Elizabeth has 3 kids from her first marriage, and those kids are 10, 8, and 7 years old. The kids were clingy from the day they moved in, but in June and July of 2020, I was living there exclusively because my mom ended up in the hospital. I couldn't do anything without the kids being in my face then, and every time I asked Dad and Elizabeth to help me stop them, they refused, and the kids didn't listen to me saying no. My dad told me I would never get another chance to have siblings, and to embrace and nurture the relationship with them. I told him that this was making them feel more like burdens than siblings, and he told me that I was too young to see them that way and dismiss my need for space. It was a huge relief when my mom got better and I could go to her house for breaks. By the time I was 12 years old, I had asked my mom if she could go to the court to change the custody deal so I could spend more time with her, and I was 13 years old when it was successful. My dad was upset, and Elizabeth was kind of mad that her kids would miss me more than they did while I was at my dad's. My uncles even said how strangely clingy the kids were, and they found it weird that every time I was with my mom, the kids would be asking when I would come home and why they couldn't see me. I wouldn't even be gone a day, and they would ask that. They started that before we even knew each other for a year. I spend way less time with my dad now, and I went on vacation with him, Elizabeth, and the kids last June, and let me tell you something, it was absolutely miserable. The vacation was basically spending all that week with the kids and following them around and doing stuff that they liked. On Christmas Eve, I spent a few hours at Dad's place, and that's because the court still requested that. So I was there, and my step-siblings were being super clingy and telling me not to go and I should be with them at Christmas. And then they demanded they get invited to my mom's house, with Elizabeth asking how I could leave and miss out on a family Christmas and hurt my siblings so much. My dad also told me on the drive back to my mom's place that I should be taking my responsibility more seriously. I took a 3-week break from them, but the 10-year-old called me daily during those 3 weeks. Then my dad announced that we were going on vacation again in May, and he was saying it was a place that I wanted to go. But I decided right then and there that I was not going to ruin a place I had always wanted wanted to go to by being smothered by my step-siblings. So I told my dad that they can go, but I won't be going along, and that I won't be going on vacation with them ever again. He was surprised and he told me that I had to go, and I said I don't need to go and I won't go. And he asked me for one good reason why. So I told him straight up that my step-siblings would ruin it by suffocating me, and that he and Elizabeth would do nothing about it. My dad called my attitude nasty and said that I should be ashamed of myself for talking about them like that. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the way that Elizabeth and your dad are acting is completely out of line because they're basically not watching their kids. They're allowing them to climb all over you and suffocate you so much that it's making any interaction with them completely impossible. Like, they need to step up and be the parents and give them something to do when you're not there, or at least give you some kind of space. Like, that's just not okay to be treated that way. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, because there is no way I'm gonna go on that vacation, especially if my step-siblings are still gonna act so clingy. An entitled couple lied about me to my manager, claiming that I was rude to them and that I rushed them out of our restaurant. And as a result, I'm now in trouble with my main manager, as my job might be on the line after this massive lie from these customers. And right now, I am panicking and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I don't even know where to begin. Today, one of my managers took me aside and told me a table I had on Friday night called the restaurant today to complain that their food was cold. They also said that they didn't like how their steak was cooked, and I apparently refused to send it back to get recooked, with these people also claiming that I rushed them and I was overall very rude to them, forcing my head manager to give them a $200 food voucher, and that he is obviously very upset at me. Now, when my manager told me this, I was absolutely baffled. I worked the past 4 days and received very few complaints about food. I originally thought it was a table that didn't know a side dish was served cold, so I gave them a new side, but it wasn't them. So my manager let me know the day and the table, and in all honesty, I hardly remember them. The woman was the one who complained on the phone, but I only remember what the man looked like. I remember the woman was unsure about how her steak was cooked, and I offered to take it back and get it recooked to her liking, which is our restaurant policy, by the way, but she said it was okay and continued to eat her food. They never complained about any cold food to me. They gave me zero indication anything was wrong. I'm also very upset that they said I rushed them, because part of my spiel when I give them the check is to straight up tell them that there is no rush, that they can pay for their bill whenever they're ready, and that they can take as long as they want. The table also tipped me the full 20%, indicating they didn't take issue at the time with my service. It's known for my restaurant that they'll give food vouchers if a customer's unhappy about virtually anything about the food, which, by the way, definitely is taken advantage of. I can take accountability for my actions and own up when I mess up. I have only been at this job a couple of months and did struggle initially. I had a major mess up in relation to how a patron wanted their steak prepared about a month ago now, and was essentially told that I'm on thin ice and I need to straighten up my act. So now I've been very conscientious about everything that I do. I told all of this to the manager working today, and she said that she would vouch for me. However, tomorrow I'm working with my head manager, and I imagine I'll get pulled to the side again to talk about it. I mean, what do I say? I don't want to tell my manager that I think these people were lying for free food, but that is in fact exactly what I think. I mean, how can I advocate for myself without putting these people down? I seriously feel like I'm going to be fighting to keep my job tomorrow, all because these people wanted free food, and now I'm in such a bad spot, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, that's a really terrible situation to be stuck in. Like, for starters, I can definitely see a customer lying just to get free food. Like, I'm sure that happens all the time in your business, and it seriously would not surprise me if they did that to you in this instance. And this is not some kind of small voucher, by the way. This is a $200 voucher. Like, this is some serious money being spent at this restaurant. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like this is some kind of like chain restaurant, but it really seems like this is some higher end place where like perfection is expected. So for these customers to really look at you, someone who is very passionate about what you do and someone who works really hard to do a good job, and just basically lie and be like, oh yeah, they treated us like garbage. It's like, what are you talking about? You're like ruining my life right now. You can't do that. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be completely honest with everything that happened. I would literally stand up for myself, because from the sounds of it, you might be the only one doing that. Sure, the other manager would vouch for you and try and give you a good word, but in my opinion, I think your own testimony against these people and basically detailing out everything that you did do for these people, I think that all of that can go a long long way in hopefully keeping your job. Because these people were clearly lying. It's not like you have a track record of being rude to customers or anything like that. You've clearly done your best, and it seems like you've only had one minor mishap with a patron in the past. So hopefully with all these things in consideration, you can still hopefully have your job the next time you meet with your main manager. Because honestly, from the sounds of it, it really seems like these patrons are trying to work the system. And for you to get caught up inside of that, honestly, in my opinion, is completely unfair. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled parents are refusing to allow me to move out at the age of 21 and instead are trying to force me to get a college degree at a university I don't even want to go to. And at this point, I'm at my breaking point and I now seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so ever since I finished school, I was forced to go to the high school of their choice. And finally, I was forced and partially manipulated at 19 years old to go to a university of their choice, studying something that they chose. And right now, I'm working a full-time job of my choice this time, of which they don't even know about. I mean, they think that I'm going to university, but instead I go to work. I am on the second year in this university, and as you can tell, I don't really go or study that much. I have so many failed exams, and I think they will expel me soon. So now, my plan is to leave this awful university, and then finally move out of my parents' house. I can't afford everything, such as food and rent and utilities, but the only problem is that my parents just don't let me leave. In the first year of university about a year ago, I managed to move out alone with a reason for studying for university. Well, about 1 week after I moved out, I told my parents that I will abandon this university and I will get a job. And when I said that, this led into a lot of fights, several thorough phone calls, as well as daily phone calls in the morning and night. And they would also come by my place a lot of the times just to argue. Eventually, after all this stuff going on for 2 months, they convinced me to come back home and resume university. Furthermore, I can do the same thing, telling them the truth and leave, but that would lead my parents into having more problems mentally, since they are so obsessed with the idea of me getting a college degree, which I do not want to. I don't care that we fight or whatever, but I can't stand the idea that they're taking antidepressants daily, and they're using this as a manipulation tactic just to make me come back to them. And right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so this is a really weird situation because it really seems like your parents are just trying to manipulate the situation and force you into something that you don't want to do. For context, the original poster is 21 years old, and honestly, at that age, if you do not want to go to college, then nobody can make you stay in there and get a degree that you don't want to get. And trust me, I hear exactly what you're saying. Maybe your parents have a lot of mental health issues and they're using that against you in some kind of way, but at the end of the day, no matter what they say or do, they can't force you to go to college if you don't want to go. If you want to work instead out of high school and do that and make money that way, then in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. But you've basically made it very clear that no, you don't want to go to university and you don't want to be around your parents and live with them. I mean, I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very miserable dealing with my parents every single day, especially if this is how they're going to act. So hopefully this all gets worked out for you because what you're describing right now does not sound normal. And I seriously think it's not normal for them to try and force you to go to college, especially when you definitely have made it clear that you do not want to do that. My partner bought a puppy against my will right before we had our newborn. And now, as a result, that dog is an absolute menace. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my partner have been together for around 11 months, and we conceived our beautiful baby boy really early into our relationship. She had a medium-sized dog and a cat, and I knew that they were part of the package since they were here before I was. Now, she is rather an impulsive buyer. I'm not the greatest myself, but I at least can admit it and include her on any big decisions. There was many times during the pregnancy that she insisted that we get a kitten or a puppy, but I always said no. I would say, let's see how things are when the baby is here. I knew that just having a newborn wasn't going to be easy. Anyways, in November when I was working in a remote location, she called me and said that there were these bad people that were going to get rid of this German Shepherd puppy on the side of the road, and that they said they would trade a puppy for an Xbox. She said that she wanted to foster the dog for 2 weeks until she finds new owners. I told her that I knew she would get attached, but she said that she wouldn't. I also reinforced that it would be extremely difficult to take care of our baby along with this new puppy. I told her that I cannot control the decisions that she makes, but that I hope that she would make a smart decision. Well, long story short, short, she got the dog. Now we have our newborn born late December, and honestly, this puppy has become a nuisance. The puppy steals the baby's clothing, it barks, urinates, and poops literally everywhere, and she does very little to prevent it. It also has chewed up most of his pacifiers and bottles. I only found out because I asked her where they all went, and she said that she didn't know. But shortly after, I saw him chewing on a bottle. She was covering for the puppy and only admitted to it once I caught him in the act. I get extremely irritated because she just lets him get away with everything, and all I end up doing is disciplining and cleaning up after the puppy while working full-time and doing most of the house tasks. When I get frustrated, she tells me that it's all in my head and that I shouldn't let it bother me because I'm allowing myself to get mad. I mean, I don't know what to do. I feel like this has become extremely disrespectful as she's made a decision that I didn't agree with, and now makes me feel bad for being frustrated and resentful about something I warned her about. I mean, should I leave? She won't budge on the dog, and she says that if I do that, I'll be ruining our son's home because of the dog. I mean, do I just stay for my son? The thought of leaving my baby boy makes me very sick to my stomach, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I'm really with the original poster on this one, because that child takes a major precedent over that dog. Now, obviously, I don't think it's smart to leave that kid behind and leave the relationship or something like that, but I do think for the sake of everybody else's sanity, that dog has got to be rehomed somewhere else. And I'm right there with the original poster. He literally said, hey, we have a baby on the way. Let's not get a dog as well on top of having a newborn baby. Because you know what? They're right. That baby is already going to be a handful, and the last thing you need is literally another mouth to feed that is only going to add more stress on the situation. So honestly, I don't think you're in the wrong, and I think the way that your partner bought that dog without you having a say in what happens, honestly, is completely unacceptable. An entitled jerk breaks into my house, claiming that he has stuff in my garage that he needs to get. And as a result, this guy got arrested, and he got charged with breaking and entering. Here's what happened. So Saturday night, the missus and I are lying in bed, trying to go to sleep when I hear some noise from the back door, with the storm door opening and slamming shut. I'm not fully asleep yet, so I put on some pants and a shirt that I can find, and I grab my pump-action weapon, if you know what I mean. We move to the mountainside, and most of the area is still wooded, and living in such conditions makes wild animals a legitimate issue. Things like bears, coyotes, raccoons, and bobcats, and those are just to name a few. So as I'm moving to the back door, I hear a window break in the back garage. I look around and I see someone breaking into my garage. I then scream for my wife to call the sheriff's office. Around here, 911 doesn't work well for break-ins, as we are connected with a couple of counties, so it does get confusing for them, and we decided that a quicker response by calling them directly would probably work. I'm now in go mode, thinking that some junkie is trying to score some tools for some quick cash. I got out of my house and I noticed this person's truck still running, so I did the only thing I could think of and took the key out of the truck and I put it in my pocket waiting for the deputies to show up. Fast forward, and it took them about 20 minutes to show up. One was state police and the other was local sheriff deputy who were doing radar 10 miles up the road, and my wife and I knew the both of them. With my weapon in hand, I told them that someone was in the garage, and I haven't approached it yet, but I do have the key of the guy's truck. So they go in and they deal with the situation, and they find this dude passed out on an old bench seat, which was for an old truck I have by my tool bench. They wake him up and then they arrest him with little to no issue other than him screaming profanities at them. They told me that I can press charges and come in on Monday to file the paperwork, stating that he's not getting out anytime soon, and on top of him breaking in, he's being charged with a DUI. So yesterday, I spent the day traveling to fix the window that this jerk broke, since there are no stores that are open on Sunday in my local area. While in my travels, I'm still fuming at the fact that I'm having to do this repair on a piece of junk door from the 70s. My wife was telling me to maybe let him go with a warning, but I'm having none of that. So this morning, I went to the sheriff's office, and the same deputy was there that arrested this jerk. So I decided to ask him how the ride was with that dude in the back of his car. And this is basically what the officer said. The officer said, "Why did you break into the garage?" And this guy said, "I was trying to get my stuff back, but someone changed the lock." The officer then said, "You know they purchased that place from Kevin 2 years ago, right?" Now, when the officer said that, this jerk said, "What? That doesn't give them the right to change the lock without telling me." But the officer responded by saying, "Well, yeah, they can. You haven't been in that house in like 4 years, and I was the one who got you out of that house for getting into a fight. That's twice I get to arrest you on the same property." This guy then said, "But he shouldn't be entitled to change the locks though. Where else am I supposed to go? Now, in terms of the property itself, we purchased it from a guy named Kevin, who is a school board member, and gave us a decent deal on the property. He had the property as a rental for his nephew for a few years, and when his nephew started walking in his dad's footsteps by getting drunk and getting in fights all the time, he evicted him from the property 2 years before we purchased it. When he evicted him, he emptied the contents of the garage as all scrap metal. Now, Kevin had other renters on the property after, but he sold it to us because he didn't want the responsibility of it anymore. Well, this guy's being charged with trespassing, as well as criminal trespassing, breaking and entering, driving under the influence, as well as property damage of less than $500. And honestly, with all things considered, I seriously hope I never have to deal with this guy ever again. Wow, the guy in this story who broke into your house is so far out of line. Like seriously, there is no good excuse for breaking into somebody's house, whether you know them or not. Like that's a really good way of getting hurt, or at the very least, just getting arrested. So good for the original poster for getting the police involved and getting this guy off of his property. Because in no way are you required to let him come on your property looking for stuff that he left behind. That is honestly weird and nobody should ever have to deal with that. Am I the jerk for supporting my grieving best friend, especially after my girlfriend just had our first baby? Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for the past 2 years, and 2 months ago we welcomed a beautiful baby boy in our lives. I'm a 20-year-old male and my girlfriend is 19 years old. Things have been kind of hectic, but we have been managing. And yes, before you say anything, I realize that we're very young to have a kid, but we're in love with each other and we're both very mature for our age. So we believe we're ready to start our family. My girlfriend chose to keep the baby, if you know what I mean, and this is all for religious reasons. And we have financial support from my parents, so we don't have to worry about money. Now, I have been best friends with this other girl who's also 19 for about a decade. She is kind and funny and pretty, but we practically grew up together, so I've only ever seen her as like a sibling. She has supported me through thick and thin, and we have been there for each other during our hardest times. Around 3 weeks ago, after my son was born, her 13-year-old sister tragically passed away. She was absolutely heartbroken and was struggling to cope with the loss. Her sister was the only person in her family that she had a good relationship with, and my friend is blaming herself for not being there for her. She has a distant relationship with her mother. Her friends from school now live very far away, and she's quite introverted, so she hasn't made a lot of new close friends. So I'm pretty much the only support she has. I went to the funeral with her back in our hometown. I bring her favorite food to make sure that she eats something. I message her every day to see if she's doing well. She's battled with depression before, and I'm terrified of losing her too. I hang out with her a couple of times a week. We go on walks, we watch movies together, we sometimes read together at the library, or even do some baking together, as well as painting with her, playing video games, and going on picnics. And these are all activities that she used to love doing with her sister. We reminisce about all the fun memories we had with her sister, and it's never become anything more than platonic. Apart from spending time with my friend, or in class and doing assignments and studying, or even at work, I spend the rest of my time supporting my family, helping with taking care of chores around the house, as well as bottle feeding and bathing my son. But recently, I've been getting into arguments with my girlfriend. She's been suspicious of me spending all my time with my friend, knowing full well that I'm simply supporting her. In the first month after our son's birth, I did everything I could to make motherhood easier for her, and I still would have if it wasn't for someone I love and care about deeply going through such a hard time. I have been completely honest to my girlfriend about helping my friend, yet she started accusing me of neglecting her and our son and saying that I only cared about my friend because I had a crush on her. I empathize and understand that she's having a stressful time adjusting to parenthood, especially after an unplanned pregnancy, but I think I should be allowed to support my best friend with her grief. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? Yes, you are absolutely the jerk in this scenario for several reasons. First of all, I feel really bad for your best friend's sister passing away, and honestly, that is awful. I really do feel for her situation, and honestly, that is a terrible thing to go through. But literally, it does sound like you have a second girlfriend with this best friend. Like, think about it. You're describing her as funny and pretty and kind, but you always backtrack by saying, oh, it's just platonic. Meanwhile, you're practically dating this lady while your girlfriend is solo taking care of this baby. It honestly sounds like your schedule is already incredibly busy, so the fact that you're trying to find more time to spend time with this best friend of yours instead of spending time with your girlfriend and your baby honestly is weird to me. Like, if my friend's sister passed away, I would be there for her. I would even show up for the funeral, which I think is a fantastic thing to do, but I wouldn't then spend every waking moment with her. Instead of spending time with my my girlfriend and my son. It almost seems like you're using your best friend's sister's passing as some kind of like license or permission to spend all your time with this girl. And maybe you don't see that you're actually doing that, but trust me, from my perspective, it really looks like that. So hopefully you can get this figured out, because honestly, this is not a good look. Because from the outside looking in, it really seems like you have two girlfriends. And I think it might be time to take care of the one that just gave birth to your son, instead of the other one that clearly is a little bit more than just being friends. Am I the jerk for canceling my sister's visit, even though her therapist said that she needed a vacation? Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all names in this next story are fake. About 3 years ago, my stepsister Daphne got pregnant. She and her husband Jim were thrilled, but found out at the 20-week scan that the baby had a congenital condition and would be born severely disabled. Daphne decided to keep going with the pregnancy despite Jim's protest, and eventually they split up, with the both of them eventually getting back together in time for their son Liam to be born. And today he is now 2 years old. Over the last 2 years, Daphne's and Jim's mental health has declined significantly. Daphne used to be a positive and pleasant person, but now it's impossible to have a conversation with her. She is malicious, envious, and flies off the handle at any perceived slight. When I was having my child, I didn't speak to her for most of the pregnancy because of how bitter and narcissistic she was. We don't live close to Daphne, so rarely we see her in person, but I heard she was getting worse from our parents. In early November, Daphne had a mental breakdown. She trashed Liam's room completely and vandalized Jim's car in a fit of rage. This was enough to finally get her moved up the waiting list for mental health services, and she was able to start therapy. She reached out to me during this time, and we had a few conversations, and I invited her and Jim to visit my husband and I for a vacation at our beach house in March. Then we saw Daphne and Jim over Christmas, and it was awful. Daphne could keep herself in check for a couple of hours, but then she would revert back to her old self. She would swear constantly, and while I know Liam can't understand her, I think swearing at kids isn't okay. Whenever I expressed concern for her, she would just snap that I need to get off my high horse about having a perfect child. Jim was snapping at her constantly. He would also constantly ask to hold or play with my child, to the point that it was honestly getting so annoying. Overall, the whole Christmas break was just the whole family being anxious over the situation. My husband finally said a week ago that he didn't want Daphne and Jim visiting, and I agreed. I called Daphne and I said that something had come up with my husband's work and we needed to cancel the trip. Well, Daphne was furious. Apparently her therapist had been saying how good this break would be for her and that I owed her this one thing to help her. Eventually she gave up and said that I was a horrible person for pulling the rug out from underneath her, and then she hung up. I feel bad if I'm derailing her recovery, and even my parents think I shouldn't have canceled, which is making me rethink things. They saw how absolutely horrible she was to me over Christmas, and they saw how obsessed Jim became with my child, and they still think that I should have put that aside. And they're not normally the keep the peace type of people, so maybe I really am wrong here. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your sister and her husband are weird. Your sister has violent outbursts and she's angry all the time. And honestly, that trip sounds like it would have been a nightmare if you had to go on it. So no, you are not the jerk. Anyone who says you are is completely out of touch, because Daphne's behavior absolutely should not be tolerated. My entitled Karen HR manager decides to suspend me from work after only being late to clock in by 1 minute. So I decided to maliciously comply and get some petty revenge, resulting in abject chaos, as well as the CEO needing to intervene just to make sure that a massive, expensive project doesn't go down the drain. And I've honestly never been happier to get revenge in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things off, for the past 5 years, I've been working at this mid-sized tech company. It's been great, or at least it was, until 6 months ago when we got a new HR manager by the name of Susan. Susan is not her real name. Now, Susan is the kind of person who loves the rules a bit too much. She came in with this idea of revolutionizing the workplace, but all she did was implement a bunch of unnecessary and strict policies. The one that really got under everybody's skin was her new attendance policy. It stated that if anyone was even a minute late more than 3 times in a month, they'd face immediate suspension without pay. No excuses, no exceptions. This was crazy, considering we're all seasoned professionals and we're definitely not school kids. But Susan was adamant and the policy was enforced to the letter. Now, I'm usually very punctual, but life happens, right? Well, just my luck. I ended up being late 3 times in 1 month. The first was because of a massive traffic jam. The second was due due to a power outage that affected my alarm. And the third, well, I just overslept. Each time I was barely 5 minutes late, but Susan didn't care, so she slapped me with a suspension notice. I was fuming, but then I remembered something important, namely our employee handbook. I had read that thing cover to cover when I first started, and something about the suspension policy stood out to me. I dug up my copy and found the section I was looking for. The policy stated that suspended employees must leave company premises immediately and are not allowed to engage in any work-related activities during their suspension. And it's right about then that a plan started to form in my head. You see, at that time, I was in the middle of a critical point for a major client. It was a huge deal for the company, and I was the lead developer. Without me, the project would grind to a halt. So I decided to follow Susan's policy to the letter. The next day, I walked into Susan's office and handed her the suspension notice, along with a printed copy of the employee's handbook suspension policy. I then told her that as the company policy, I will be leaving the premises immediately, and I will not partake in any work-related activities during my suspension, and that includes the Johnson project. Now, when I said that, the color drained from her face. She said to me, "You can't just leave the Johnson project." But you know what? I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, "Company policy, Susan. I'm sure you wouldn't want to break the rules." I then gathered my things and I left the office. Fast forward and the fallout was immediate. The project team was in disarray without me, and the client was getting antsy about the missed deadlines. The CEO himself called me 2 days into my suspension, begging me to come back. But I explained that I was merely following company policies as enforced by Susan. Well, fast forward, and to make a long story short, the CEO had to intervene. My suspension was lifted and I was back at work the next day. And do you want to know what the best part about this was? Susan's ridiculous policies were all reviewed and mostly scrapped. She is still with the company, but let's just say her enthusiasm for rulemaking has significantly diminished. Honestly, good for the original poster. That is such a funny way to get revenge. Like, here's the thing. If you're just a few minutes late to work, it is really not that big of a deal, especially as an adult. Like, things can happen out of your control, no matter how early in the morning you get up to go to work. So when the electricity goes off and it destroys your alarm, or if there's some kind of like traffic jam or some kind of like accident, like that's not your fault. You should not be penalized for that. So the fact that Susan was really gonna treat you so poorly and seriously suspend you for being just a few minutes late to work throughout the month, that is seriously going so overboard, it's not even fair. And I just love the fact that out of anybody there who could have been suspended, she decided to suspend the person who's leading the development for this big project. And I just love the fact that she's like, "Wait a second, no, you can't go." But it's like, if you're gonna follow the rules, then so am I. So hopefully this never happens again, because honestly, this Susan lady sounds absolutely obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworkers, family, and neighbors think that I'm some nefarious person, as I'm coming to her house just to try and pick her up for dinner. And honestly, with all things considered, as well as how intimidating all of them were surrounding me, I am seriously just glad that I got out unharmed. Here's what happened. So on Saturday night, I was supposed to go to dinner with some folks from work, including a girl who said she needed a ride. Her car isn't the most reliable, so I said that I would give her a lift. She's about 10 years younger than me, she's the shortest girl at the office, and she is very, very Hispanic. And of course, I say this not as a put down, but it's essential in the context of the story. I set off a few minutes early to the address I'd been given and wound up pulling up to a home with signs outside that said, "Smile, buddy, you're on camera." And when I saw those, I grinned. I liked the attitude that those signs displayed, and I just really hoped I was in the right place. So I texted the girl from work and I told her that I was ready for her, and she said that she'll be right there. So I got out of my car, did a bit of a stretch, and then leaned against my car and started going through my phone. While I was waiting and minding my own business, I sensed that somebody was approaching. What gave it away was someone saying, "I think you came to the wrong neighborhood," with two other guys chuckling at the line as they approached. They looked to be about my age or maybe a bit younger, between their mid-20s and early 30s. I didn't see any tattoos, but they were all about the same size, and they had 3 to my 1. And those are not the kind of odds that you want to see. I started doing that thing people do when they're about to panic and they're trying to calm the situation down. So I was waving my hands up and down, and I was saying to them, "Hey man, I'm just doing my thing. I work with a girl that lives in this house, and she asked me to give her a ride." I turned to point at the house in question and was greeted with the sight of an older man holding a baseball bat, leaving the house and also approaching myself and my new friends. He was smacking his palm with the bat and chuckling in a menacing fashion as he came. While I was busy staring at the man with the baseball bat, all three of the other dudes started to invade my personal space. The older guy with the baseball bat comes up while still smacking his palm with the bat, and in a tone that promises violence is imminent, he said to me, "You should get in your car and go home before something bad happens." Now, at that moment, I was torn between just sticking around and doing my own thing, as I mentioned earlier, and also thinking, oh no, this could be really bad. But thankfully, my saving grace rapidly approached. A gray sedan was driving up the street, and upon seeing me surrounded by other people, absolutely floored it and squealed into the driveway of the house. Out of the car flew the girl I was supposed to give a ride to, and she was angry. She immediately starts speaking Spanish rapidly and in a furious tone. I swear, her temper added a good foot in height, while she read all four of the dudes who got in my face the riot act. She actually started shaking a finger under the noses of the first bunch of dudes, who all made sorry noises in Spanish and slunk off towards wherever they came from with their metaphorical tails between their legs. And then our hero turns on the man with the bat, who has since hidden the bat behind his back like that's gonna save him. While all this is happening, the other occupant of the car has gotten out. It's our hero's grandmother, and she's walking her way down the driveway, completely bypassing the girl from work and the man with the bat to come up right to me and start to talk to me. She says to me, "Oh, you're the nice man who fixes my granddaughter's computer when she cries about it. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you very much for driving her to dinner. Please try and make sure she doesn't get into any trouble." I said, "You're very welcome," and then she said, "You know, I don't think my granddaughter needs much looking after, nor do I think that I want to be the one to tell her that she can't do something that she wants. That seems unsafe." I finished in a musing tone, while the man with the bat, who was indeed my coworker's father, continues to get scolded. Then the sweet old lady laughs at something that I said, and then her tone shifts, with her barking something in Spanish, in a tone reserved for little boys who have gotten a case of the clevers. And then she points at me and my coworker, and then growls something else. Now, I have absolutely no idea what was said, but the Batman is now looking at the ground. He walks over and takes the nice woman's elbow and leads her up the stairs and into the house. Now, I'm just stood there trying to figure out what in the world just happened to me. And I think the slackjaw gave it away, as my coworker says to me, "My dad thought you were my boyfriend and called some neighbors. I'm really sorry. Are you ready to go?" And honestly, with all things considered, that truly was one of the scariest moments of my life. Man, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. Here you are trying to pick up a coworker, and suddenly it's a 4-on-1 fight, and one of them is sporting a baseball bat. I'm pretty sure if I was in the original poster's shoes, I probably would have just gotten in my car and left and let my coworker pretty much sort it out from there. But good for you for somewhat standing your ground, as well as getting out of that situation unharmed, because honestly, that whole scenario sounds incredibly scary. My girlfriend of 2 years suddenly took everything and left me without saying a thing, and at this point, I am still blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. So the title pretty much says it all. 5 days ago, I tried to call her a few times throughout the day while I was at my tattoo shop just to check on her. We both do it daily and we chat, but she didn't answer and didn't call back. And later on, it went straight to busy. I eventually got worried if she's okay, but checked her Instagram and then other messaging apps that she has, and it's right then that I understood I was blocked on everything. She didn't block my business number, but eventually she blocked that one as well after I tried on that number too. I came home to see that along with her personal belongings, my cat, my laptop and iPad, as well as my drawing tablet and tattoo machines were all gone. Also her favorite cologne of mine and her favorite leather jacket of mine. Everything was completely missing. All of it gone with no notes. And I have nothing to understand any of this. Recently, she's been asking me for more money here and there, and I gave some to her the 2 times that she asked for it, and that was so she could buy a new iPhone and some other little things. I don't care about the money. I make enough to rebuy the things, but I feel awful and broken. I also miss her and I literally don't know anything. I think I should be angry or hate her or something like that, but she was the best before leaving suddenly. She's beautiful, she's very introverted, she wants to be back at home all the time, but talks a lot to me and our friends, and she has had a history of depression. She hasn't looked depressed since the first couple of weeks of us dating, and yes, she gets sad moods every now and then, just like anybody else, but I've tried to be there for her. Her therapist kept saying that she's doing great for a long time, and I don't believe that she was struggling with depression. I don't know where she is, we didn't fight, I mean we never did, and whatever way I try to reach out to her, she blocks it. All her friends are my best friends or their partners, and all of whom she has also blocked. Her only friend I knew and had the contacts for lives in another city now, and told me that it's not her business, but also told me that she answered her call too and that she's very sorry. I just don't understand what happened. We painted together, we watched great movies together, we worked out, we talked and laughed. We had a good life. We would even go shopping and have date nights and parties. I absolutely insanely love her and she does too. Well, I thought she did at least. And I've had enough relationships to know that she did. Not long ago when I had visited my old man, she FaceTimed me to talk in my earbuds through the night and just to hear me breathe. It's probably cringe to you and it would be to me, but that's just how close we are. So I really don't know what happened. She had asked me to get a very specific ring with a very specific jewel a year into our relationship, and we talked about it a lot, including our future. She was so excited that I cared to have the ring made, and it wasn't a super expensive ring to sell. She asked for one made of a certain wood. From her family, I've only met her sister. Everyone else who's close family to her is abroad. Her sister tells me weird things, like asking me why I left her and what I've done, as well as asking me where she is. She eventually stopped messaging me after I stopped replying time and time again that I'm just as confused. I'm at the point right now where I don't know what to do. I can barely eat anything when I get home and I feel sad a lot, like my heart is about to explode in my chest and I find it hard to breathe. I didn't tell this to my friends either. I just told them that we broke up when they asked why she's blocked all contact. Should I just forget about all of this without knowing what happened? What should I do? This is a very suspicious situation and honestly, I would probably go to the police. Like she ran off with your cat as well as your belongings and just cut town and blocked you everywhere. And now nobody knows where she's at or anything along those lines? Like that sounds really sketchy. Also, your girlfriend stole your cat, which by the way, the original poster has had that longer than he's known his girlfriend. So for her to just take that as she's walking out the door is just really weird and super obnoxious. But also more to the point, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. Like honestly, this is crazy. Your girlfriend who loved you and had a good relationship with you just gets up and leaves without any kind of warning? Like seriously, what is going on? That is super unfair to you and honestly, I hope this all works out in your favor. My entitled mom is fine with my brother moving to Italy, but doesn't want me to move to South Korea for some reason. And at this point, I feel completely blindsided and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things out, my fiance and I have considered moving to South Korea. Personally, I don't have anything keeping me to where I live. I have lived the same boring life in my depressing small town, and I am craving something so different. My fiance doesn't care where we live as he doesn't have a strong preference. With our idea of moving to South Korea, my mom has had numerous meltdowns and manipulated me into telling my fiance to stay in the US. She has even heavily suggested he applies to grad school so that he can have a better future in the United States, and even had him considering to switch majors because she didn't think that he would have a bright future with the major that he was studying. My fiance also couldn't work due to being on a student visa. He could have worked easily in his home country, and my mom made it such a big deal that he couldn't work at the time. We have even thought about living in South Korea for a little bit of time for a few months or a few years, and I really want our future baby to spend time in South Korea. We are now thinking about the first few years of our baby's life to be in South Korea, and then when the baby reaches the age of 5, we will bring it back to the United States and have it start school here. My mom has further made that an issue and told me that I can't keep her grandchildren away from her. I'm honestly sure that she would try to bring me to court all over this and say that I'm denying her rights as a grandparent. But for this, I'm going. I am not going to give up on this dream of ours, and our baby will live sometime in South Korea. Last night, my mom's friend was over for dinner, and my mom revealed to us that my brother is thinking about buying a house in Italy and might be moving there. Now, I was completely shocked, and I said out loud, "Are you kidding me? I can't move to South Korea, but my brother can move to Italy?" My mom's friend chimed in and said, "Well, it's safer in Italy than South Korea, all due to North Korea's issues." I said to my mom's friend in a sarcastic tone, "Trust me, it's very safe in South Korea, but thanks for your concern." Well, my mom just sat there in happiness while continuing to talk about her excitement of my brother buying a house in Italy and maybe moving there eventually. So I'm Italian American, and my mom is very prideful of her Italian culture. When it comes to South Korea, my mom believes it's unsafe due to North Korea, and she ignores anything I tell her about how safe it is within the country, and that a lot of Koreans don't see North Korea as a threat. My mom is also scared that if I move there, then I will never come back to see her ever again. And yet, my brother can move to Italy. I'm truly disappointed and very sad. I had to give up my life in South Korea because of my mom's manipulation manipulation and emotional breakdowns. And my fiance made such a big compromise just for my brother to get praised for buying a house in Italy. So am I wrong for feeling completely blindsided? What should I do? Honestly, the way your mom is acting is super toxic. She is clearly showing favoritism towards your brother and just making up ridiculous excuses as to why you can't move to South Korea. But I think you can hold on to the hope that eventually, one day, you and your partner can have your own life, and your mom will hopefully not play a role in derailing it in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not allowing my mother-in-law to come over to my house unannounced anymore, all because she has constantly overstepped my boundaries and caused a lot of problems for me and my newborn son? Here's what happened. So I've been with my husband for 3.5 years and married for just over 1. This past November, we had our first child. My husband is an only child and his father was never in the picture, and him and his mom have never really been close. Now, for a little bit of backstory, we are both at odds with my mother-in-law, and it all started less than 24 hours after I had my son. My husband and I both told my mother-in-law and my mother that we did not want our son's birth turned into a photo opportunity. People taking pictures of me have always made me feel uncomfortable, and my son had some complications immediately after he was born, so he was rushed to an ICU. I wasn't able to see him for roughly 9 hours, and once I was allowed to go see him in the ICU, my husband went with me as this was the first time I was officially meeting my newborn son. The next thing I know is that I look up and see my mother-in-law using this opportunity as a photo op. And when I saw this, I was fuming. These were not the first pictures I wanted of my son or of my husband and I with our son. The next morning, my mother-in-law decided she wanted to come back and see our son, who is now safe and in our room. Now, I am running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, but still said I was okay for her to come along. Once she was there, I didn't really interact with her. I was just trying to rest up. And after she left, she ended up calling my husband. And this is when he decided to call her out on the photo op and how she completely violated a boundary that we clearly set. And you know what? Her response absolutely floored me. She began yelling at my husband, saying that I hate her and that I don't like her and I never have, and that I am so hateful towards her. She said her reasoning for taking the pictures was because she thought that we would want to remember that moment, and in her mind, it was a big deal, and she didn't see the point of getting upset. Once all this happened, I decided I needed to distance myself from her and just focus on my new family. And you know what? My husband agreed with doing this as well. Fast forward to about a week and a half ago, and my husband and son had been sick for over a week. I was out doing errands and getting groceries, and my mother-in-law asked me multiple times if I wanted anything from Sam's Club. Now, I would constantly tell her, no, but thank you. But she was doing the same thing to my husband, and he would also respond by, no, we're good, but thank you. Well, I returned home and my son was screaming. He had not slept all day, and we decided to try for a nap. My husband finally falls asleep, and I finally get my son to fall asleep as well. Maybe about 10 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. My dog goes flying and barking her head off, waking up my son. I answer the door and I say, why are you here? And my mother-in-law said that she wanted to bring me a rotisserie chicken, a trash can, and laundry detergent. I told her we already said we didn't want anything, and to not show up at our house unannounced, and that the next time she tries to give us any random stuff, I will immediately return it to her, as we don't want anything from her. Well, as you can imagine, she got angry and said that she will never come over or speak to us ever again. Then she slammed the door and walked off. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yeah, your mother-in-law is absolutely being crazy in this situation. She's coming over unannounced, and she's clearly crossing boundaries that you very clearly set up. Like, it really shouldn't be that hard to listen to what's being said and stop trying to insert herself into the situation, all under this lie that she's helping in some kind of way. Like, I totally get it. Maybe she's excited about being a grandmother or something like that, or she wants to be involved and help out, but you know what? From the sounds of it, she has only been a hindrance. She's not respecting the fact that they are parents now, and they get to call the shots in what happens in their marriage. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your mother-in-law's acting weird, and honestly, I don't blame you for acting the way that you did. My entitled managers take away my vacation time, claiming that there's a new rule in their upcoming handbook that denies me the 4 days that I'm owed. But after doing some research and talking with other coworkers, I realized that they are lying through their teeth. So I decide to get some revenge by suing them and winning my court case, resulting in them getting fired from their jobs, as well as me getting paid thousands of dollars. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at my managers in my life. Here's what happened. So I work for a company with with great pay and great benefits. And one of those great benefits was all of our vacation days. I worked there for years without performance or attendance issues. I was also an employee who would not work overtime, and I gave 100% while I was there. Each year, I would pre-plan all of my vacation days. We had to put our plans on a calendar for approval, and I wanted to receive my approval before confirming my plans. So I did everything as early as possible. I had no vacation request problems for years and did not hear of other employees having issues with their vacation time or pay. Well, one year, all of a sudden, after using all but 4 of my vacation days, management said I had no additional paid vacation time. I reviewed our online handbook, gathered my requested and approved time off, and checked my pay stubs to verify the paid vacation days that I'd taken thus far. I then presented to management all of my research. My direct manager then said that he checked, and apparently, according to them, I didn't have 4 additional vacation days. Well, that wasn't good enough, so I asked him to forward it to his manager, and his manager said the exact same thing, but I still was not satisfied, and eventually, my concerns reached the center manager. The center manager called me into a meeting, and I again presented my findings, showing that I had 4 unused vacation days left. He then began discussing changes to our vacation policy, all while making eye contact and smiling. He turned his computer around to show me the new handbook that they constructed, which would reflect the new vacation policy. But I thought to myself, wait a minute, there is an online employee handbook, yet I'm supposed to go by a new handbook not known to any of the employees? I mean, this simply does not make any sense. I politely said okay, and then I walked out. I removed my 4 days from my vacation calendar, and it was at that moment that I decided I was going to get some revenge. I then began chatting with other employees just to see the number of days that they had taken for that year, as well as the number of days that they had left. I would ask questions like, how was your vacation? How long did you stay? Are you choosing a different place to spend the rest of your vacation days? Asking questions like these and related questions allowed me to calculate the number of vacation days they used or had remaining in general. And you know what I found? I did not find one other employee having my issue with vacation time. So I waited a couple of months, and then I filed a lawsuit while working there. Other employees did not know about my lawsuit, at least not from me, but I'm sure that management absolutely knew. The lawsuit, especially during the discovery process, revealed an email chain, and the email chain showed the center manager directly asking HR all about my 4 unused vacation days, with human resources confirming in the email that I had 4 unused vacation days that I had available. And get this, the center manager used a fictitious new handbook just to cover up his actions and other management's actions. Also, they could deny my vacation time. So fast forward, and shortly thereafter, we settled the lawsuit, and they had to pay me thousands of dollars for 4 unused vacation days. Now, of course, I had to resign, and the center manager and other management either lost their jobs, they retired, or they quit. Now, here's the thing. All I wanted was my unused paid vacation time, but what I received instead was so much more, and I'm just so glad that I was able to get back at those managers who were clearly trying to steal my time. Wow, that's honestly incredibly disrespectful, and that is so deceitful from the management to pull that kind of move. Here you are just trying to schedule out your year, and these people are like, no, you can't do that anymore because we have a new handbook that says so. It's like, what are you doing? Why would you lie to an employee just to prevent them from having any kind of time off? Like, for starters, if they have vacation days, why not just let them take it? Like, literally, that's what they're there for, and it's so weird to try and deny that. Why on earth would you lie to your employee like that? That honestly will set up a horrible precedent moving forward for literally anybody who is still working there or anybody who might work there in the future. So you know what? Good for the original poster for getting this done in the way that they did. This company absolutely deserves to have a lawsuit slapped against them because what they did is time theft. And honestly, no one deserves to be treated like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that she hasn't been my mom since I was 5 years old? Because right now she's acting like I owe her everything all because she's my mom. But I simply could not disagree more, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When I was 5 years old, my mother had her second child, who is my sister. We have different dads, and neither was involved when we were kids. My sister was born prematurely, and this is when my mother went from being my mom to being an almost stranger to me. She spent all her time at the hospital with my sister, and I was passed around from friends to family, and even to strangers my mother and I didn't know, because my aunt would hand hand me over to someone in her husband's family, or a family friend would pass me on to their friend. My sister was in the hospital for months and had many complications from being born so early, so she was one of the youngest premature babies in the hospital's history. When she started to get strong enough to go home, complications due to her stomach were found, and that required more time and more treatments. My mother was in and out of the hospital with her for the next couple of years as they performed surgeries and gave treatments when she would get sick. At that point, even when my mother was home with my sister, she would keep me somewhere else normally, and the times I was home with her, I was left alone, and her focus was always on my sister. Then, when my sister was 2 years old, she was diagnosed with leukemia, and that resulted in more treatments and more hospital visits, and just never ever seeing them. By the time I was 10 years old, my mother was okay leaving me at home while they were at the hospital, so I was all alone. It was also around this time that my teacher started to suggest that I might have dyslexia, and the school reached out to my mother, but she was too focused on my sister to do anything for me. Now, nothing changed after my sister became cancer-free, and she was less sick and needed the hospital less. My mother was so devoted to her that she didn't pay attention to me, and the both of them were basically strangers to me. I started staying with my girlfriend's family as a teenager, and my mom simply didn't care. I would only go to her house when I needed to pick up more of my clothes or more of my stuff, and when I turned 18 years old, I moved out officially and got my dyslexia diagnosis. Fast forward, and now years later, I don't really have anything to do with my mother or my sister. I don't blame my sister for any of this. It's just that no bond could form when we were younger, and she's also just a stranger to me at this point. My mother has started to have some health problems and is now turning to me for help. She told me I should be around more and doing stuff to help her out, simply because she is my mom. She also said that my sister deserves a relationship with me and accused me of punishing my sister for existing. I told her that wasn't true, but we were strangers, and that was because of my mother. I also told her that she hadn't been my mom since I was 5 years old, and she had no right to ask me to care for her when she hasn't cared for me in almost 20 years. She then called me selfish and a spoiled child who never grew up. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the way your mom acted when you were a child, and how she basically pushed you to the wayside, all so she could send all her focus towards your sister, that in my opinion is so uncalled for. Now, don't get me wrong, I get that the younger sister had a lot of health problems. Being a premature baby, as well as having leukemia as a child, is no joke. That is very serious, and any good parent would focus their time in helping that sister. But it really does sound like the mom basically said, okay, I only have one daughter now, and basically pushed the original poster to the side and said, nope, I'm not going to pay attention to you. Because in my mind, I really do believe that she very easily could have paid attention to both kids. She could have been available for both of them, despite the circumstances around the sister. That's just my opinion, at least. It really seems like she just did not care about you as a child, and some pretty glaring evidence of that is when you were a teenager and you basically moved out. Like, you're living with your friend and your mom basically could care less. She doesn't care when you come to the house or when you leave. Like, there's just nothing coming from your mom. And that alone to me is proof that the original poster is not making this up. It really sounds like the sister is healthy at this point, and there were no more health complications in their teenage years, so there is no legitimate reason for the mom to still be fixated on this kid, all while neglecting the original poster. So honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for the reaction that you had, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I probably would feel the exact same way. Am I the jerk for only buying my parents stuff that cannot be shared or stolen? Because my brother and his family constantly take stuff that I buy them, and at this point, I'm getting so frustrated and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother, who's 32 years old, has been knocking up his wife since they were in high school. Their oldest is now 13, but they have 3 more. She is a stay-at-home mom, and he works as cleaning staff at a camp. It's pretty good money, but they waste a lot of it. They have multiple gaming systems, and the oldest 2 kids have very new iPhones. In contrast, I'm 28 years old, and I live in a loft above my parents' garage. I do not pay rent because my folks want me to save up for my future, but I do help out around the house, and I buy groceries for my parents as well as myself. My brother and his family live in the in-law suite in my parents' basement, and it was supposed to be a rental to get them some extra money for when they retire, but after my brother lost his job because he would not get vaccinated, our parents decided to let them move in. I also love to buy them gifts, but my brother and his family always needed exactly what I happened to give them. For example, I bought my mom a very colorful bag from Colombia called a mochila. It is just a woven cotton shoulder bag made with very vibrantly colored yarn, happen. My niece, who's 9 years old, saw the bag and wanted to use it for a school project, which is when she very promptly and conveniently lost it. Another example is when I bought my father some bourbon, since he loves to have a drink after a long day. Well, my brother and his wife found it and drank it, deciding to mix it with orange juice because it had such a strong taste. So now I do other stuff. I took my mom to go see Anastasia and I got us really good seats, and I decided that no one else was invited. I also took my dad out for a steak dinner, and then we went to a speakeasy in our city and I treated him to a $160 cocktail. These are things my parents love doing, but they simply won't waste their money. In fact, I keep the groceries that I buy in my loft. I will make meals for my parents and have them over, or I will bring the ingredients and cook with my dad. My brother started asking why I don't leave the groceries in the freezer or the fridge or the pantry that they have access to, as well as why I stopped buying my parents gifts. He says that I'm living there for free and that I should give them more. I asked him how much he was paying them in rent or how he was contributing to the household, and he said that he was tired on the weeks that he was home and that his wife and kids were too busy to help. Now, I work a full-time job, I volunteer at a cat rescue, I do theater as well as sports as a hobby, and I still manage to help out with the yard work, the housework, as well as helping out with errands and my grandmother, who is in a locked-in facility for dementia patients. Even with my very busy schedule, I'm still able to do all of this. I pointed this out and he said that I was being a little jerk, but I responded by saying that I wasn't stupid enough to leave anything around that he or his family could try and steal. So now we are fighting and my parents are upset. His wife called me a jerk for not sharing the treats I buy for my parents, but I can only afford to buy treats for my parents and myself. I can't do that for 5 more people who do not contribute anything. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? Honestly, I do not think you're the jerk. I think your brother and your sister-in-law are being very weird, and they basically showed their hand about what they really want. They don't care about you giving gifts to your parents. They just want to get whatever you give them. They literally just want a free handout, and they want more opportunities to steal stuff from your parents. But with all things considered, I think the way you're going about doing this is honestly perfect. You're getting things for your parents that nobody can take away from them. And that's brilliant in this case because your brother and sister-in-law are just being completely unreasonable. So no, of course not, you are definitely not the jerk. They're being incredibly weird, and it's pretty obvious that they have ulterior motives. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she needs to stop babysitting for this deadbeat friend? Because right now, this supposed friend is literally taking advantage of my wife. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife has a friend that has 3 kids under 6 years old, and this includes a 2-month-old infant. My wife met this woman via social media, and she had posted that she was looking for someone to watch her kids in the afternoon and evening, all while she delivered pizza. She couldn't afford to pay much more than $40 a week, so that's all my wife made to watch her kids up to 25 hours a week. My wife was going to school online at the time, so it worked out. She could do her schooling and make a few dollars on the side. After my wife went back to work, I thought she would cut ties with this lady, but you know what? I was wrong. This friend would ask my wife to babysit on occasion, all in exchange for food stamps because she'd lost her job. Probably a year ago, the friend asked my wife to watch her youngest for a few days so that she could go out of state to pick up her man. This man, by the way, is a gang member who was just released from prison. And at the time, I said no, absolutely not. I worked nights at the time and I knew I would get 0 sleep with a 2-year-old in our house. And this doesn't even mention the fact that we don't sleep in any of the bedrooms. Those go to our stepkids, and we basically sleep in what you would call a living room. This friend keeps popping up needing things. I drove her to the store the day before Thanksgiving to buy stuff, also that she could fix dinner for her kids and her man. She has started to tell my wife she needs a break and asking her to watch her older daughter, who is 3 years old, who also has behavioral issues, doesn't sleep through the night, and is just an all-around nightmare. My wife came to me and said that this friend is going crazy and needs a break, asking if we can watch the kids this weekend, which means we're gonna have to keep her overnight. Now, I protested because we only usually get 1 day a week off together, but she said that I can just go out for the day. But I said to her, look, I don't want to be kicked out of my own house, all because you insist on helping this girl out all the time. But my wife says to me that that won't work because she works through the week and can't watch her overnight. But I said, okay, who cares? If this girl would get a job, she could pay for a babysitter. Now, let me just tell you about this girl. There is a lot more to the story about her, which is why I'm so callous towards her. She is full of drama and she is a terrible mother. Well, my wife and I have argued many times about having this toxic person in our lives, and I'm honestly finally putting my foot down. down. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. It sounds like your wife is getting taken advantage of, and for some reason your wife is either oblivious to what's going on, or she's just letting this all happen to her. Now, maybe this is a situation where your wife just doesn't know how to say no to this lady. Maybe she's just a naturally charitable person and she likes helping people out or whatever might be going on. But in my opinion, this is not one of those situations. This isn't a friend who needs help in a time of need. This is someone who's taking advantage of you. Also, she doesn't have to watch her kids as much. Oh, and by the way, she's only paying you $40 a week, which by the way, that's insane. You mean to tell me you're working 25 hours a week taking care of this lady's kids and she's only coughing up 40 bucks? Like, that would have been a deal breaker in my opinion at the get-go. So the fact that your wife agreed to this in the first place is insane to me. It also seems like this friend only comes to your wife because she always says yes. But I guarantee you that if the roles were reversed and your wife asked this friend for any kind of help, she would ghost your wife immediately and never talk to her again. Because from the sounds of it, and based on what the original poster has said, this supposed friend is just someone who takes from anyone around her. She doesn't actually care about this man's wife or anything like that, and honestly, it really shows. So no, you are not the jerk. It sounds like you're the only one speaking reason in this situation, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that it is their job to help out my sister? Because after a lifetime of dealing with her awful attitude, I'm seriously so done hanging out with her and would much rather spend time with my friends without her being around. Here's what happened. Okay, so for starters, my sister and I are not close. She has really bad social skills. She does not have any diagnosis like ADHD or autism, but she has never been good with social stuff. She's very intelligent and she's a very good problem solver, and she lacks the understanding that easy for her is not easy for everyone. She also lacks the social skills to know or even realize that complaining about other things that people are interested in, or their lack of skills or anything like that, is not how you make friends or get people to like you. This has been an issue with her since we were in elementary school, and maybe even preschool. She would win at almost every board game and would ask very bluntly why someone was bad, and that person would normally be me. She'd tell me how easy it was and I should be winning because I'm older. Our parents always bought board games like that, which suited her way more. I really hated playing against her because her attitude after winning wasn't fun or easy to be around, and she was like that with other people too. One time our aunt played with us, and she is a teacher, and my sister basically asked how she could be a teacher when she couldn't even win a game against a 6-year-old. I never liked having to spend time with my sister, and I hated playing anything with her even more. She always wanted to spend more time with me, but I avoided that as much as I possibly could. Eventually, she started to sit in on me playing video games, and she would try to backseat game or would criticize me for taking so long to finish a puzzle, or she would literally take the controller out of my hand and do the puzzle for me. She was also like that when I had friends over too. Then she'd get upset when it was clear that we didn't want her around. I tried telling her it was rude to insult people or to interrupt others and to help without being asked, and to continue when asked to stop. She would tell me it was boring to watch someone struggle and everyone should be thanking her. Now, there are some things that she is not good at, and boy, her reactions are very strong, like temper tantrum strong. Our parents have banned the game charades because my sister could not play that to save her life and would then get so mad. She's had friends in the past, but all of them eventually drop her when they grow tired of her complaining about stuff they like. She would basically be indirectly calling them dumb. She's really lonely now because I never hang out with her. She has no friends, and even our cousins don't want to know her. My parents have been on my case about hanging out with my friends and not including my sister, and how I don't ever make time for her anymore. They said I could and should be helping her way more. Well, the other day, I told them that it was their job to help her out and not mine. They said that we're sisters, and yet I act like I don't like her, but the truth is that I don't. I don't know if I've ever liked her really, but I really don't like her now, and I hate every second I spend with her. I didn't tell my parents this, but saying that it was their job to help my sister and not mine really seemed to upset them. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Wow, your sister sounds really annoying. Let me tell you something. I've met people who act like this, and seriously, they are so hard to be around. They make everything a weird competition, and they're always trying to one-up you regardless of if you're just trying to have a good time. And the worst part about it is that there's no reason to act that way. Also, the younger sister's justification for acting like this is just completely misguided as well. Like, you've explained to her that you can't talk to people this way, but she still feels the need to try and correct people, or to basically basically make fun of them when they're not good at something that she is good at. So in my opinion, I think you're completely in the right. I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think this really is your parents' problem, because you have definitely tried to be around your sister. But from the sounds of it, she sounds like a nightmare of a person to put up with on a daily basis. My spoiled, entitled sister demands that I pay for her wedding, including a $10,000 dress that she absolutely can't live without. But once I told her no and that I cannot afford that, she and the rest of my extended family have turned their backs on me, calling me selfish and unsupportive, and also calling me a jerk for not paying for the entire wedding. And at this point, I'm starting to feel guilty and incredibly lonely, as my entire family has now cut me off. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 28-year-old female, and I have a younger sister who's 25, and she is getting married next month. She has always been spoiled by our parents and expects everyone to cater to her whims. She is also very obsessed with having a lavish wedding, even though she and her fiance are not very well off. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which I agreed to, even though I don't really like her fiance. He is a rude and lazy guy who doesn't treat her very well, but she thinks that he is the love of her life. I tried to be supportive and help her with the wedding planning, but she was very demanding and unreasonable. She wanted me to do everything for her, from booking the venue to sending the invitations to choosing the flowers. She also expected me to pay for half of the expenses, which I refused to do. I told her that I would only pay for my own dress and accessories, and that she and her fiance should cover the rest. Well, when I said that, she was very angry with me and said that I was being selfish and unsupportive. She said that I owed her for being her sister and that I should help her have her dream wedding. She also said that she had already picked out a wedding dress that cost about $10,000 and that I should be the one to pay for it since she couldn't afford it. She actually said that it was the least I could do since I had a better job and more savings than her. Honestly, when she said this, I was shocked and appalled by her request. I told her that there was no way I was going to pay for her wedding dress or anything for that matter. I told her that she was being ridiculous and entitled and that she should live within her means. I also told her that her wedding dress was way too expensive and that she should look for something more affordable and practical. Well, she threw a tantrum and called me a horrible sister. She said that I was ruining her wedding and that she hated me. She then hung up on me and blocked me on all social media. She also told our parents and the rest of the family what happened, and unfortunately, they have all sided with her. They said that I was being stingy and mean, and that I should apologize to her and just pay for the dress. They said that it was my duty as her sister and maid of honor, and that I should make her happy on her special day. But you know what? I refused to do so. And now I'm being shunned by my entire family. They have all uninvited me from the wedding, while also cutting off all contact with me. They said that I am no longer welcome in their lives, and that they hope I regret my decision. Honestly, I don't think I did anything wrong, but I am starting to feel guilty and very alone. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I cannot believe that the extended family sided with your sister, because that is insane to me. First off, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your sister is insane for expecting you to pay for her wedding, let alone a $10,000 wedding dress. Like seriously, $10,000 for a wedding dress she's gonna wear once. Like, I don't know about you, but I am definitely not made of money where I can drop that at a moment's notice. So for anybody, let alone a sibling, to expect that from one of their older siblings, all under the guise of, oh, come on, you gotta make me happy. That is insane to me, and there's no way that's reasonable. Like, why is that falling squarely on your shoulders? Like, it seems pretty convenient that the rest of the family is siding with your sister, because that screams to me that they don't want to pay for that stupid dress either. They are all basically ganging up on you to try and force your hand so that you're the one that has to pay for the dress, because they know for a fact they can't handle that dress for a second. And if this really is bothering you that much, you just need to remember that aspect of all of this, because if you're not willing to pay for it, I can guarantee you they're not going to pay for it either. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would not give in to their weird guilt tripping for a second, because you know for a fact that none of them want to pay for that stupid dress, and they're only pressuring you in this way so that you can eventually cave and then give them some money. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not wanting my friend's boyfriend at my small wedding weekend? Because right now, I don't think my friend is totally getting it, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm going to have a phone call tonight with my friend to tell her that I don't want her boyfriend coming to my micro wedding. wedding. We were going to elope originally, but we do have some aging family members that we would really like to have there as it would be meaningful. So we changed our plans and ended up making a very small list of our nearest and dearest. For context, last spring, I moved across the ocean to be with my fiance. We are having a very small micro-style wedding, and my friend was asking about it and sounded like she really wanted to attend. I then explained that there are no plus ones, meaning that you can't bring anybody with you, but if she could come along, that would be lovely. Well, apparently her boyfriend, who I've met maybe 2 times, has a thing about being left out, and she told me that. I asked her to just explain to him that no one gets a plus one, and at one point, I must have said something about money and why we were keeping it so small, and my friend really clung to that idea. A few days after she and I talked, I get the following text message. She said to me, "We both want to be there for you and your fiance at your wedding, and we've already set aside a budget for the year. We'll make the timeline work with our stuff. My boyfriend also says don't worry about the cost for after party expenses because you're so important to me and it's important that we're there for this big life event. We love you both so much and I'm already looking at tickets and a train and lodging. Send me more details as you get them and we're definitely going to be there." Well, when I saw this, I was panicking. I then said to her, "Wait, don't book anything yet. We haven't booked anything yet, but I will keep you updated." I then asked her straight up, "Did you talk to him about what I told you? It's people that we only know really well. Not that I don't want to get to know him, but it is a very small wedding with just a few of our closest people. Honestly, my heart is racing right now." Well, maybe I should have said something like, "No, you misunderstood. He is not welcome for the after parties or the weekend, as it's only going to be people that myself and my fiance are close to." But unfortunately, that's not what I said. My friend responded by saying that she won't book anything yet, and that they were just looking for price estimations. She then said that he would just sit out of the ceremony or the reception if that's the concern, and that it's more about traveling and being together. She said that he's been to weddings where his partners weren't invited, and he totally gets it, while also stating that they're gonna pay for themselves, and they don't mind if it's standing room only. She then closed out by saying that they want to be there to celebrate me and my fiance and our love. Well, I didn't respond for over a week, and then I texted her and said, "Can we schedule a phone call to talk about my wedding? I think I need to clarify some things." Now, here's the thing. The ceremony and the photos afterwards and the meal afterwards, it's all a special time for me, and I only want people that I'm close to for this event in my life. So honestly, am I the jerk for not wanting this boyfriend to show up? Because I'm going to be calling my friend to make sure that she understands what's actually happening, and at this point, I'm not sure how it's going to go down. No, you're definitely not the jerk. You made it very clear that there are no plus ones. You only want people there that you know and you're comfortable with, and it's not about the money. Like, I see what you mean when you referenced that earlier. Your friend is using this as some weird excuse just so she can bring along her boyfriend, but she is completely missing the part where you're like, wait, no, I don't want anyone besides you. No one's allowed to bring a guest of any kind. I mean, this is being referred to as a micro wedding. How can she not understand that you don't want a lot of people there that you don't know? So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you are completely justified telling her exactly how it is, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. My entitled mother doesn't respect my boundaries or conversations about them, and after I found out that she went through my room and reorganized everything without my permission, I can honestly say that I've hit my tipping point, and right now I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm a 20-year-old female and I'm a nurse, and I also live with my family. My mother has issues respecting boundaries and really pushed me to my limits yesterday. She loves a good, deep spring clean and reorganizing everybody's rooms, even if we don't agree with their opinions or suggestions. She doesn't communicate and she just does as she pleases. Now, I'm starting a new job and I had a full day of orientation yesterday. My room was clean and had been reorganized by me not even a week ago. So after I left, she goes and reorganizes my room, going through all of my personal items, through my wardrobe, and even going as far as throwing away sentimental things. I am very particular about the way my things are set up, and I hate when people go through my things and judge them. I come home and as I'm walking in, she tells me not to get mad. I said, don't give me a reason to get mad, and I won't. And then she tells me that she rearranged my room and my closet. I walk into the mess of my stuff being scattered and none of it where it was placed. So I got mad. But she said to me, isn't it better for space? I said she had no right to go through my things and to throw away things. I went on to say that this is a huge breach of my privacy and it's disrespecting my boundaries. She then starts to try and guilt trip me and gaslight me by sighing and then walking away to cry cry, and then she was waiting for me to apologize for getting mad. She then attempted an apology after dinner, which sounded so forced and unapologetic in every way, shape, and form. But I just ignored it because I did not see it as genuine. I went out with my friends for a couple of hours after that, and when I came back home, she was sitting on the couch crying at the TV. She apologized and said, "Don't hold this against me." I then asked her if she was actually sorry or whatever it was, just so I wouldn't resent her for it. But after I said that, she just started crying again. Well, today has been radio silence, except for a couple of snide remarks saying that she's apologized so many times, which simply isn't the case at all. And you know what? Honestly, I just can't take this anymore, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I have to agree with the original poster here. Their one space in the house was completely violated by their mom going in there without permission. Like, that's what this is really about. She went in there and moved everything around and reorganized your room, even though you literally cleaned and reorganized your room not even a week ago. Like, she had to have known that you did that already, right? Because if she didn't, then obviously she's completely blind and deaf. But even worse, if she did know that you reorganized your entire room, then she did that on purpose just to go through your stuff. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic and so uncalled for. Now, I don't know if there's an opportunity for you to put a lock on your door or anything like that, but I would definitely invest in some kind of like locking mechanism to keep your stuff safe. Even if that means literally putting your personal and sentimental items in like a physical safe of some kind, because what you're describing right now is a massive breach of trust. And if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be angry as well. Today, I messed up by trying to get into the wrong car, and as a result, I ended up scaring some poor college student. Here's what happened. So I want to start off with some needed backstory. I am a college student who has their own apartment in this basically college-only urbanization. Due to certain circumstances, my somewhat older uncles fell ill recently, and luckily they live in the same urbanization, being approximately an 8-minute walk away from my apartment. Unfortunately, my uncle got hospitalized a few days ago by being hard-headed, and my aunt, following my husband's example, refused to listen to the doctor's orders and needed to be hospitalized yesterday. They are doing better at the moment, but that's not the main issue at hand. You see, both of them live with my uncle's mom, who is my grandmother. I stayed with my grandmother all day yesterday after my aunt was hospitalized, but one of my cousins, thinking and understanding that college starts tomorrow and that I've got preparations to do, she insisted to take our grandmother with her to her place so I can go back to my apartment and finish my things up, while also accommodating the fact that my grandmother, who hasn't lived alone for several years now, doesn't have to stay the night alone. Now, as anybody that's tried to move an elderly person from one place to another for an indefinite amount of time, you will know that this is not exactly the easiest thing to do. After some back and forth of solid conversation and coercion attempts, we settled on the plan that my grandmother would go with my cousin to her house for the night, but we'll come back the next day since my cousin has to pass by the house to go to her job anyways, and either myself or one of my neighbors, who is basically family at this point, would basically stay with my grandmother until my cousin left work and would then pick her up again, and this pattern would continue on until either my uncle or my aunt would be better enough to leave the hospital and continue their regular days at the house. Well, fast forward, and today was the first day of our plan. As usual, I wake up and do my regular morning routine, and after finishing up, I texted my cousin to check how things are and if everything is on schedule. But here's the thing, she did not answer the phone. Now, knowing how both my grandmother and my cousin can be, I figured that she was rushing things and unable to answer a text message, so I decided to give her a call instead. But even then, nobody answered the phone. This meant one of two things. Either she was talking with someone from her work, or her kid was being distracting with the phone from all the rushing chaos. And I would imagine on the first day of her morning routine, there would definitely be a lot of chaos. So I decide to wait and wait right up until it's about time that they should be getting near my place. So, not really having much of a choice, I start walking over to the house so I can take over and spend my day with grandma before I have to start taking shifts with one of the neighbors after starting college tomorrow. Now, as I'm getting there, I notice what I thought at the time was my cousin's van parked and running in front of the house. But if you remember, this is basically an urbanization where almost all the houses are actually hostels for college students. And under normal circumstances, the only people that are in that spot are either one of my cousins or me when I bring some stuff in my own car. The neighbors are either hostel owners or college students that both respect everybody's parking space, and we haven't ever really had any issues in that regard. Getting closer to the house, I noticed notice that the gate is actually locked and who I believe to be my cousin inside of her van talking to somebody who I assume to be her work through the van's Bluetooth speaker. And this is the kind where it's like stupidly loud. Now, knowing that I don't have a key, I call out to my grandmother to tell her that my cousin locked the gate. But the issue is that my grandmother is always in one of two places in the house. She's either in her room or on the very back of the house where she will never hear me, or she's in the family room watching TV. Well, since the family room is closer to the front entrance and she definitely didn't hear me there, I thought that she definitely had to be in her room. Not wanting to interrupt who I believe to be my cousin, who is still at this time in the van and talking to someone who I presumed was her work, I waved at her and I pointed at the locked gate while making a key gesture for her to catch on. Now, at this point, it's a good time to say my cousin's van has this thing where if the sun hits the windows at a certain way, from the outside of the car, you cannot see anything above a person's chest. So at this point, even though I'm a couple of feet away from the van, I don't actually see the face of the person in the driver's seat. I only see a female outline wearing a uniform and speaking on the phone while also moving her hands around. So I continue waiting next to the car. Then I hear the audible clicks of the locks when you lock and unlock a car from the inside, and her moving her hands towards the passenger seat, the one seat that is in front of me. Meanwhile, I was still unaware that this is in fact not my cousin, who is having a seemingly very important conversation about her work. I assume this was her way of saying, just grab the keys, I can't get them for you right now. So I did what anybody would do, and I tried to open the door. But as I put my hands on the handle and pulled it, I realized that it was locked. And that's when I see her face. And you know what? I have no idea who this girl was, and she has no idea who I am. The problem is that my dumb brain didn't catch up with what my eyes were looking at, and for a good 2 seconds with my hand still on the handle, I look at this girl the same way you stare at your computer when it's loading. After what seemed like an eternity, I immediately backed away from the car, confirmed my surroundings, and then I call my cousin, who once again doesn't answer her phone. So I end up calling cousin number 2, who's the sister of the cousin, and that's when she tells me that my other cousin didn't have work today, so it was unlikely that grandma was going to go back to my aunt's house today, and that she'll let me know if anything changes, but she was as surprised as me that I wasn't told about this. Well, immediately I thank her and I hang up after telling her to tell my uncles that I said hi, and proceeded to turn around and face the van, which is still there next to me, with the Bluetooth speaker phone call still running, mind you, and the shocked college freshman who was apparently moving in, because as mentioned before, I know all the neighbors around there, and I don't know who this lady is for a second. Keep in mind, I'm a fairly big guy coming in at about 6 foot and 200 pounds or something like that, so there's no way this looks good to me. I then proceed to awkwardly wave and say at the top of my lungs, I am so sorry, I confused you with someone else, while also turning around and speed walking my way back to my apartment without waiting or noticing for any type of reaction. And honestly, I now feel like an idiot, and next time I go towards my cousin's car, I'm gonna make sure that it's actually her. Wow, that's an awful scenario, because seriously, I can see that happening. People get mixed up, they see a car that looks like a car they think they know, and then they try to get into said car and it's all just a mess. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, and hopefully things work out with your family, because what you described absolutely sounds like a mess, and I don't think this is a mistake that you want to make twice. Am I the jerk for loving my girlfriend too much in public? Because as a result, my stepbrother's girlfriend has just broken up with him, and he is now blaming it all on me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. My girlfriend and I have been dating for about 2 years, and words can't describe how much I love her. She's awesome every single day, and I honestly feel lucky that she decided to be with me, and the best part is that she told me she feels the same. We're even talking about moving in together, and I'm in a really good place right now. Well, my dad, my stepmom, my stepbrother and his girlfriend and stepsisters were all going to the mall today, and I decided to invite my girlfriend, but she said that she was busy. But you know what? She wasn't actually busy. She wanted to surprise me and coordinated this with my older stepsister. So my stepsister told me to turn around, and I saw her walking over. I ran over, pulled her into a hug, and I kissed her, and I was so happy. It wasn't like I was in a sour mood and moping around all day. I was just happier because my girlfriend was with me. I had my arms around her pretty much the whole time that we were there. Later, in the parking lot, my stepbrother's girlfriend pulled him aside. It seemed like they were arguing, and she ended up walking away afterwards. My stepbrother walked up to me and asked if I was happy. I asked what he meant, and according to him, I made his girlfriend dump him. Apparently, she said that she wanted someone to love her the way I loved my girlfriend, girlfriend, and he was convinced I purposefully acted in such a way so that they would break up right then and there. Everyone else heard what was going on and came over, and my stepbrother explained his side, which was pretty much him just saying that my girlfriend and I made his girlfriend dump him. And before we could defend ourselves, my stepmother started ranting at us. My dad stuck up for us, and pretty soon everyone was arguing. My girlfriend and I left, and then we went back to her place. Well, I just got a long text from my stepmom that's basically just her saying that I should stop acting so obsessed with my girlfriend and that I was a major jerk for ruining my stepbrother's relationship. Now, I can't speak to how his relationship was before I introduced them to my girlfriend, but all I know is that they've been dating for 4 years, and I haven't really been around them that much. I was only acting how I normally act with my girlfriend because I love her so much, and I think I should be allowed to hug her in public. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You're not the jerk. It sounds like your stepbrother is an awful boyfriend, and it sounds like your stepmom is completely delusional. Like seriously, why would you be the problem in that guy's relationship? You didn't plan them breaking up. This was probably in the works for years in the making. Like, it is literally insane for you to be blamed for that relationship falling apart because you absolutely had nothing to do with it, and anyone who blames that on you is seriously out of their mind. A group of entitled Karens make my life a living nightmare as they schedule a dinner reservation for their upcoming wedding without servers, dishwashers, and other essential things for an evening dinner just so they could cut costs and save some money. But as a result, this evening very quickly turned into a nightmare as this became one of the most hectic jobs I've ever completed in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so today I'm going to tell you the tale of me trying to feed a clan of angry, pushy, unvaccinated Karens. Just last year, we had a client who turned out to be a total Karen. It started out with small tells that we probably should have noticed in retrospect. I mean, there were definitely degrading comments made towards their own daughter during a menu tasting, as well as her being snippy over prices. However, it didn't quite register at the time, and we gave them the benefit of the doubt. They originally decided to do a self-serve buffet and picked out their menu pending their final guest count. We give them a ballpark based on their maximum guest count, and that seems to be that for the time being. Well, months roll by and they give us their final guest count, while we deliver an estimate based on that. But almost immediately, they get more rude over the price. They also want to change from buffet service to fully plated, and they did this because they feel there's not enough space in the venue for a buffet. So we happily oblige and redo the entire estimate. Now, for any who aren't aware, plated service generally requires far more staff than a buffet. You need plating cooks and servers, not to mention additional equipment like plate racks. And needless to say, with all of this added together, the Karen is furious and demands that the servers be removed because according to her, the guests can walk up to the kitchen service window and get their own plates. And you know what? That's totally fine. That is doable. But that still is not enough. She starts complaining by saying, "Oh, why is the price so high?" So we then proceed to explain the equipment and the kitchen staff needed, plus having staff on call in case of call-ins and no-shows. Well, this entitled Karen isn't having any of that, resulting in all sorts of cajoling over the price and the unneeded staff. At one point, they even tried to use the native status of some relatives just to get the sales tax removed. And as a side note, it turns out that even just trying to do that is a federal crime where we're at, which had I known at the time, things would have been much different. So to try to accommodate, we trim it down. I've plated for 35 solo with no delay out of the back of a van. I was outpacing what the 2 servers could take most of the time. 4 staff for 100 people or so shouldn't really be an issue if the tables are set up for 10 people, and especially if they're going to be shuffling up one by one to get their plates. But fast forward to the day of, and trust me, this is definitely not how it ended up playing out. As it turned out, on the day of, the coordinator had no seating plan or plan of who gets what. All we have is the invoice of the total numbers of dishes to be plated up, so no prioritizing can even be done on a table-by-table basis. And this is where we had a feeling it was about to be an awful evening. Literally, right as service starts, and we have about as many plates of salad stacked on the service window as you can possibly fit, the wedding coordinator barges in and tells us that people won't be coming to get their own plates, and then refuses to elaborate further. So things just went from suboptimal to a complete disaster at this point. So what happens instead, you might ask? The wedding coordinator and 2 of their staff are carrying plates one by one to the tables. We literally don't have room to place more plates, so the head chef exits the kitchen kitchen and starts taking plates by the armful. And I'm talking all the way from the wrist up to the shoulder, since there are no serving trays in the client's venue, and we didn't pack any unneeded equipment as per the client's request. So you might be asking, what does the chef see when he gets out on the floor? Well, the stupid wedding coordinator packed the tables in so tightly that no one can even get out of their seat. No one can even get between the tables to serve the food, and the guests have to pass the plates down the tables. But it just keeps getting worse. While the chef is out, the coordinator comes in, apparently mad that the plates are not all matching. She's informed the client forewent a rental of dishware to use the ones in the venue. So there literally aren't more than 30 matching plates of any particular size or design in the dish cupboard. So the coordinator starts digging through the clean dishes with her unwashed hands, presumably trying to find more matching plates, and she was doing this all without even covering up her hair. On top of that, she tossed her jacket down onto an open bin full of bread rolls. So now we have to discard those as well. And on top of that too, we have to sanitize all the dishes that she made filthy. The salads were simple, but the entrees have multiple components. The coordinator and her staff start to just take incomplete plates because they don't even know what a full plate should include. When we tell them to stop, the coordinator goes full Karen mode, berating us and saying that people are hungry, while also berating us for sending out incomplete plates. Now, the mother of Bridezilla, the Queen Karen herself, comes up to the plating window and starts screaming at the whole kitchen staff, shouting obscenities, slurs, and other threats. She is literally screaming that some entrees left the kitchen without a dinner roll. When the chef apologizes and tries to calm her down and offers to go hand out the missing rolls, she says, "I'll shove those dinner rolls where the sun doesn't shine." The chef just shrugs her off and once again has to go out of the kitchen to dole out missing items directly to people. As soon as the chef left, the Karen coordinator comes back in and starts completely messing up all the plates again, grinding service to a halt as we desperately try to clean up her health violations. And then the mother of Bridezilla returns just to scream at us some more. The last plates are finally made up, leftovers are packed up where they need to go, and at this point, the chef sends everyone home so they don't have to deal with the Karen's posse anymore. And the Queen Karen told us to get out multiple times anyways. This chef, the brave man that he is, stays behind and helps bust the tables. He scraps the dishware and cleans the kitchen. Now, as a note, no cleaning of dishware was to be included because this entitled Karen didn't want to pay the staff hours to handle it, but the chef stays over and handles it all anyways. Because bless him, he wants to make up for the inconvenience of it all. Well, that unfortunately wasn't good enough for Bridezilla or the mother of Bridezilla herself at all. Almost immediately following the wedding, they started sending angry emails trying to demand huge refunds with the veiled threat of giving us bad reviews. Our office guy by this point has conducted their own investigation since just about every staff member filed a report of harassment from the client and their guests, as well as notation of all the health code violations that the coordinator Karen caused in the kitchen. But what a mistake it was to use facts on a Karen, as they immediately spun around making up all sorts of health violations, downplaying the tirade of verbal harassment, minimizing coordinator Karen's kitchen escapades, as well as their threats to ruin us with bad reviews. Well, rightly so, our office guy shuts them down, offers a partial refund as a professional courtesy, but only on the contingency that they sign a settlement agreement. Now, why would we want them to sign a settlement agreement, you might be asking? Well, it's because they've already threatened to give us bad reviews, as well as take things to court, not to mention their slander, libel, and defamation. And in my honest opinion, the company should have told them to pound sand, and that an apology would have been too good after Queen Karen called the kitchen staff all sorts of names. Well, apparently, signing the agreement just wasn't what the Karen clan wanted, or maybe they wouldn't be satisfied with anything less than a full refund. But eventually, the bad reviews started to come in, not to mention the social media slandering and the general angry Karen stuff. I mean, this was an absolute nightmare. Apparently, some of them even submitted bogus reports to the health inspector, and hilariously enough, none of those even lined up with their previous complaints, such as one for moldy food and the frozen meals that we sell at our storefront. As of initially writing this back in November of last year, Google finally stepped in and blasted their awful reviews into the shadow realm. All they could do was cry about it all over Facebook. Now, to end this story off, as it turned out, during the investigation of the Karen's clan, every single one of them was a bunch of anti-vax COVID deniers. Now, what does this have to do with any of this, you might be wondering? Well, shortly after I made this post, they ended up transmitting COVID to all of the staff that we had present there. And this basically left us shut down for the rest of November with all of our staff sick, as well as getting their family sick. And this is all because they're too stupid and selfish to get a little shot in the arm. All in all, I think this was the worst group of people I've ever seen in over 2 decades of hospitality. Wow, that is an absolute nightmare. These Karens not only didn't want any servers, but they also didn't want to pay for people to wash the dishes. Like seriously, are they stupid or something? I mean, not to mention some of the obvious clues that yeah, they are pretty dumb, but like seriously, they didn't even want someone washing the dishes? Honestly, with all things considered, I'm so sorry you went through this, but man, I can only imagine having to deal with this because these Karens sounded absolutely obnoxious. And hopefully nothing like this ever happens to you or your business ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for reminding my parents that my stepsister ruined our family's future? Here's what happened. So I grew up in a big blended family where we all consider ourselves siblings, and I consider my stepmom my mother. Now all of us kids are close except for one person who we will call Lena, my stepsister. Lena is not her real name. My parents think it's just because she didn't grow up with the rest of us, but that's not it. And sure, by the time she came to live with us, she was almost 18 years old. But it's not because of that. It's because she cost the rest of us our futures. You see, when she came to live with us, she had been independently homeschooled. She was said to be very smart, but testing revealed that she only had about a 9th grade education, all with no transferable credits. Neither our school or the public school were willing to place her above the 9th grade. Since she was only about a month away from turning 18, this would mean that she would be in high school until her 21st birthday, and would more likely than not have dropped out anyways. The other option was for her to get a GED. Now, they were devastated, especially because she had an offer from family friends to get her into and through college if she did a very specific program that she did have advanced education in. If she didn't graduate that year, they would question how bad it was and likely rescind the offer. The only other option was for her to get a GED, which would force the family friend to take back the offer, even if they still wanted to help her out, because she could never get accepted with a GED. My parents worried over this until someone they knew who was the admin of another private school offered to help out. They offered to enroll her as a senior and she could spend the year catching up, and this was provided that they saw it in their hearts to give a donation, of course. Well, after $100,000 later, she graduated from an accredited high school and moved on to college. My family, by the way, is just normal middle class, so paying that price meant that the rest of us had to take out massive student loans, and my youngest siblings even had to switch to public schooling. My older brother got some help before this, but there wasn't a dime left for the rest of us. My parents justify it by saying they had to do it because it was their job to give all their kids as close to an equal start to their lives as possible, and this was the only option to do that for her. My mom asked why we all have this strained relationship with Lena, and it finally came out that truthfully, we resent her for the huge financial load on us and the rest of the family that she caused. It has been 10 years and she's never even tried to apologize or make amends, and that is honestly grating. But now my father is telling us that my mom has fallen into a depressive episode, all because nobody loves Lena except for her, and that we were not a family despite everything that she's done. Well, in my eyes, we are a family, just not Lena. So am I a jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, I do think you're kind of being a jerk here. First of all, it's been 10 years. If this happened like last week, I would understand where you're coming from. But seriously, you're acting like she ruined your lives. First of all, this is not Lena's fault. And if anything, this falls on your parents for not maintaining her homeschooling. And sure, it was self-directed or whatever you want to call it, but seriously, that is not easy to do on your own. So it kind of makes sense that your stepsister would be behind just a little bit. Kids don't choose to homeschool themselves. I mean, your parents had to step in and make that decision at some point. And so now, because your parents dropped the ball, Lena was stuck in an awful situation. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. Sure, her parents spent a lot of money to get her education, but that is literally them trying to fix a situation that they caused. So honestly, in my opinion, if after 10 years you're still trying to hold this over Lena's head, then I really think you are the jerk in this situation, and you really need to understand exactly where this problem really started. Am I the jerk for refusing to leave my son's wedding simply because my daughter was having really bad had social anxiety. Because at this point, my daughter is acting incredibly immature, and right now I am unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I first want to say that this has been a built-up issue, as my son got married this weekend, and this issue isn't dying, so I'm gonna go here to figure it out. My daughter has very bad anxiety. She is 19 years old, and I'm gonna call her Shelly for the sake of the story. Shelly is not her real name. Now, she used to go to therapy when she was a minor, but she stopped as soon as she turned 18 years old. And ever since then, her anxiety has been out of control. And due to this, she won't drive anymore. Now, she has a license, but she refuses to drive. We live in the United States, and driving is basically needed, or it's a big inconvenience for the people around her. Also, she is an adult, so it's not like we can force her to drive. Now, this is where the issue comes into play. My son was getting married, and she was uncomfortable with so many people around her at this wedding. So she asked me to take her home. I told her no, and that if she's having difficulties, she can wait in the car. But she told me that it's freezing outside and that she just needs to leave. So I told her no again, and I told her to turn on the heat in the car, and that she can wait there if she really needs to be away from people. Well, she didn't like this answer, and told me that she will have a panic attack if she stays, and that she needs to go home. Well, I told her that she needs to take an Uber then, because I am not leaving. And when I said this, she simply didn't like that, turning this into a full argument. And when Shelly told me that I need to take her home again, I had simply had enough. I told Shelly she was being selfish, and that despite her many opinions, I will not deprive her brother of having his parents being at his wedding. I said that if I took her home, I would miss his wedding since it was an hour drive from here. Well, Shelly called me a jerk and left to go stay in the car for a little bit. She was back about an hour later for the rest of the wedding, and she has been angry with me ever since, with her younger brother copying her attitude. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I seriously can't believe that your daughter's acting like that, and that she would seriously want to pull you away from this wedding just so she can go all the way home an hour away. Like, does she not care about the fact that her brother's getting married? Like, seriously, that's so selfish, it's not even funny. And here's the thing, if she knows she has panic issues and she has a lot of like social anxiety or something like that, then it is her responsibility to manage those symptoms and make sure she's in a good place. Because it is absolutely unreasonable for everyone else around her to literally have to change everything about their life just to accommodate her. And I'm not saying that in a general sense. If there are minor things that a loved one or a sibling really would need to better accommodate their living situation or whatever might be going on, then I am more than willing to like step up and make those changes. But for her to seriously look at you and be like, no, I want to leave the wedding right now and you need to drive me home right away. Like, that is completely unacceptable and unreasonable given the circumstances. And so you telling her to get an Uber or to sit in the car honestly is exactly what I would have done. Because if you walked out on that day when your son was about to get married, that honestly would have been completely tragic. And it all would have been Shelly's fault because she has not done anything to manage her anxiety symptoms. So no, you are not the jerk. Her anxiety is for her to deal with. And if she cannot understand that simple fact, then that is something that she is just gonna have to live with. Am I the jerk for refusing to name my daughter after my bully from high school? Because right now, my husband is not listening to any of my concerns. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was in high school, I was constantly being bullied by Sophia. She made fun of my appearance, my personality, my hobbies, and my grades. She also spread rumors about me and often told me that she wished I wasn't alive. And she was pretty specific about saying that to me. And even in elementary school, she was just this stuck-up brat who just endlessly spoke about how rich she was. So, in general, I do not have a positive connotation for the name Sophia, but wouldn't just dislike someone because they share the name. Well, my husband and I were discussing names for our child, and we don't know if it's going to be a male or a female, but we started making a list of 10 male and 10 female names that we would consider. And one of the names that my husband was very insistent on was Sophia. And this is the name of his dead grandmother who basically raised him since his parents were always busy with work. Now, all at once, I told him that I would not even consider it because of the bully who tormented me who was also named Sophia. Well, he got angry since he really wanted to use the name of the person who meant so much to him. But I held my ground and I simply refused. He told me that we should at least put it in the possible names category, but I said absolutely not since I did not even want to consider it. Well, he got really angry that I wasn't trying to take his opinion into account. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this is really funny to me because like, how can your husband not see that this is a problem? For starters, no, of course you're not the jerk. Like, this is insane that your husband can't see where you're coming from. So obviously, this brings up a lot of bad memories about a school bully who made your life a living nightmare. And obviously, that can affect someone well into adulthood. And you know what? I know exactly where you're coming from as well. The name of my bully when I was in school is like a name I don't like at all. It has a horrible negative connotation and it really does bring up bad memories. So the last thing I would ever want to do is name my future child by that bully's name. Like, that's just a recipe for disaster, and that literally will just make me resent that child for the rest of their life. And if someone really wants to think like, oh yeah, you just gotta get over it, then that person is being completely unreasonable and clearly they didn't have any kind of struggles as a kid. Because in the case of the original poster, this bully literally said to the original poster that they wish they were no longer alive. Like, I don't know about you, but that really sounds like an awful person, and from the sounds of it, they made their entire high school career an absolute nightmare. So the fact that your husband is trying to push this name on you is evidence right there that he's not even thinking about your experience, and he honestly is being very short-sighted. Also, why on earth would he still want to pursue a name that the both of you don't agree on? That seems incredibly counterintuitive, and it honestly just doesn't make sense why he would want to put it on the list. If either one of you said no to a name for your future child, then that, in my opinion, should be like the end of the conversation. That should be the last thing you ever say about it, and you just say, okay, that name's not gonna work. And then you move on to other names that do work. Like, how is this hard for your husband to understand? So overall, no, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your husband is being unreasonable, and the fact that he would get upset over this honestly is insane to me, because that name has a lot of weight to it. And I seriously think that if you named your future child by that name, then that would seriously be a disaster waiting to happen. My parents hired a private detective just so they could follow my every move and make sure that I'm still following their house rules, despite the fact that I'm 25 years old. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so to start things out, I'm in my late 20s and I live on my own and have my own car. My parents are super strict and made me miss out on the college experience, which I am still bitter about. I come from a family of extroverted people, such as my cousin who is also accomplished career-wise, but still throws parties with around 70 people. She got to have the whole exciting college experience involving large social events and pursuit of creative passions, and now she has fun alongside her career. She also wrote and starred in her own musicals, and I have a similar passion for acting that I've never even gotten to pursue. I got the similar genes of being fun-loving, creatively passionate, and wanting to enjoy my life. Well, I moved out at 25 to make up for what I've missed out on, and to at least try and enjoy my current freedom. The years after moving out have been the best years of my life. However, my parents still make me feel restricted. They literally hired detectives to remotely tap into my phone, as well as read my text messages. They found out I was staying over at a friend's house, and they got so mad that they threatened to show up to the friend's house just to tell her to leave me alone. They're also tracking my car because they know when I'm out late, and then they scold me for it. I can probably find the tracker and remove it, but the detectives part worries me since they're able to do this without a tracker. So how should I even begin to stop this? Should I say I'm gonna reduce in-person time with them from once a week to once every 2 weeks? I mean, they got really mad when I suggested that before, because even with weekly visits, they miss me too much. I feel sad because I'm missing out socially and romantically, as they still manage to enforce their rules of don't go out after sunset, as well as don't have sleepovers and don't go out on the weekends. Instead, they want me in at 5:30 and they want me to focus on my work. I would love to meet and organically form a romantic connection with somebody, but my opportunity to meet new people is restricted, since after work, weekend times after dark, and the once a week day that they see me are all off limits for socializing. So honestly, I'm at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is literally an insane story because your family is stalking you. They are hiring private investigators to stalk and follow your every move, as well as tap into your phone calls and text messages. Like, seriously, my guy, this is not okay. They are literally trying to control your life even though you moved out. So if I was in your shoes, I would be going to the police. This is not normal behavior. Like, I would understand if a parent was concerned about their kid moving out or something like that, but this is insane behavior. This is not okay. This is not them worrying about you and what you're doing. This is them literally trying to control every aspect of your life. And that is incredibly creepy. There is no good excuse for this. So yeah, I would call the police and get them involved. And I would also go to some like auto shop of some kind and explain to them exactly what's going on and maybe pay to see if they can find any kind of tracker on your car. Because what you're describing right now is insanely scary and this is not normal behavior. Like they're even going as far as like tracking who you're talking to and how late you're staying out. Like I'm kind of surprised you haven't blocked these people at this point and told them to get lost and pound some sand. Like you're 25 years old. You don't have to explain anything to these people. So honestly, with all things considered, I really hope you're able to get away from your parents and you're able to get to the bottom of all this craziness because this behavior is not normal in the slightest. And I just think it would be a mistake to let this slide and do nothing about it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My wife has an annual trip every single year that she goes on by herself. And after seeing this happen for so many years, I'm starting to question why she's going on this trip in the first place without also inviting her husband. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife loves to travel, but I do not. I don't hate it, but I find it stressful and flying makes me incredibly anxious. My wife, on the other hand, has traveled all over the place, lived in multiple countries, and is always planning the next big adventure. This really hasn't been an issue for us. I do travel with my wife probably once or twice a year, usually staying a little bit closer to home. Otherwise, she travels with her friends and family. She always invites me on these trips, but I rarely go. And while I miss having her around, it is a good arrangement. She gets to do something that she loves, and I get some alone time to unwind at home. She'll send pictures and we'll FaceTime, and she usually brings me back some cool souvenirs. Now, all of this is to say there's one trip she makes every single year that I'm starting to get really uncomfortable with. She goes by herself to the same place every year, and it is non-negotiable. When she's there, I hear from her way less than any other trip. She'll send pictures and we do FaceTime, but it is a lot less often. When she gets back, she'll give me snippets of information, but I don't get a full day-by-day rundown. Now, this trip predates me. She first went to this place in college and has been back basically every year since. She's told me several times how much this place means to her, but I personally have a lot of problems with this. For starters, the trip is non-negotiable. She's had lots of trips change or get canceled or not materialize, but this one never does that. It is always going to happen. I'm also not invited and it feels very secretive, like she doesn't want to share it with me. And this place isn't exactly a tourist hotspot. It's not what you would think as a vacation destination, and there aren't a lot of sights to see even according to my wife. So why does she feel the need to go back 10 years in a row if there's not that much to do? I've brought it up to my wife, but she can't see where I'm coming from. The issue being that we have the money and that we have time off of work, and we still have a great relationship outside of all of this. I even asked if I could come along sometime, but she accused me of only wanting to go so that I could keep tabs on her, because I, under any other circumstance, would have no interest in going to this place. So, according to her, it's either my insecurity or my ego that's trying to keep her from her passion. Now, I get where she's coming from, but it also seems crazy to me to be deliberately unwilling to include your spouse in something like this. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't necessarily think you're the jerk in this situation, but I do think it's probably safe to mind your own business. Like, this trip is something that has been going on well before your wife met you, and it's something that she enjoys to do every single year. Like, there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. It doesn't sound like there's any kind of like nefarious things going on, and I'm willing to assume that there's no hints of her like cheating on you or anything like that. So personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with her going on a solo trip every single year. Also, the way she spoke to you really makes me believe that maybe you do keep tabs on her way too much. Like, I know if I was in your shoes and my significant other said something like that, where they thought I was monitoring them way too much or something like that, I would do some serious self-reflection and be like, wait, am I actually doing that? Because maybe this is a situation where you might be a little too obsessed in what she is and isn't doing. And maybe this is a wake-up call to like take a step back and not be so overly involved and like overbearing. And maybe that's not what's going on here. This is just an honest observation. So hopefully you can figure this out, because honestly, I don't see this as nearly as big of a deal as you're making it. And if your wife seriously wants to go on a private trip every single year, then I think it's completely reasonable to just let her do it. Today, I messed up by almost losing my job and my mentorship over a silly joke. Here's what happened. So this story happened happened back in 2002. For a small backstory, being physically disabled, I've beat the odds many times in my life. I also grew up in an extremely hostile family and was told that I would never amount to much of anything. And this will be important to know going into the story because it contributed to how big of a mess up I potentially made. I am blessed to have had two grandparents who believed in me even when they didn't have a reason to, and that's why I ended up with this opportunity. When I graduated high school, my parents made it clear that they did not think I would live long enough to make use of a college education due to my various health-related challenges, and thus I was on my own to figure out what to do for a career. Growing up with a disability, I always had a fascination with motivation and psychology, and growing up in a hostile environment, abnormal psychology was definitely a particular interest. My grandfather, who to be fair is one of the smartest and most positive men I've ever known, would regularly peruse the local newspaper and found that there was a local job in health-related research that was run by the head of the psychology department at a local university. My grandfather encouraged me to apply because the advertisement said that there were multiple jobs available. It also said that a mentorship was available in certain situations, which my father said would be an awesome opportunity. I got the job a few weeks later and apparently had impressed the person who was doing the interviewing because on my second day at the job, I met the director of the entire project, who also happened to be a research-based psychologist who had received international recognition. Apparently, I conducted myself well, and he took an interest in me because we had about a 2-hour conversation upon our first meeting. The job itself was conducting research surveys on a variety of topics via the phone, so it's basically a government-funded telemarketing thing. I was originally brought in for one project, but within a matter of months, I was transferred under the director of the facility to work on a senior citizen project. Completion of an individual survey in the senior citizen project usually took about somewhere between 10 to 25 minutes. I've always had the gift of speaking well, and there were only about 10 to 12 of the staff of 80 working on this particular project. When I was selected for the project, this led to me working at least a few days a week directly with the professor, which led to him offering the mentorship over multiple years, which means I got to learn more about the science of behavioral change from somebody who was nationally recognized. But unfortunately, this is where my mess up begins. Now, normally we were on 4-hour shifts for this particular project because dealing with people who had a good bit of hearing loss and other misunderstandings sometimes would be draining, so we would switch working different projects. I had been asked to cover someone's shift later in the day, which means that I was going to put in what amounted to a 10-hour day on the phone, with at least 6 of those hours being senior citizen-related project work. There was a policy that if a person responding to the survey was difficult, we could flag a supervisor and have them give us permission to terminate the phone call or continue on another day, and this will be important later on. I was going through the day and had 7 surveys completed and was starting to get a little tired. Well, this girl I was crushing on, who happened to be my coworker, invited me to hang out after work. So needless to say, I was exceedingly excited about the prospects that waited my young 20-something-year-old self at the end of my shift. Well, that is until everything started going downhill. I was put on the phone with a respondent who was in her 90s at approximately 30 minutes before the shift was to end. The first thing that she says to me is that she had broken her hearing aids earlier in the day and that they were not charging correctly, but I confidently let her know that I could be patient and repeat everything that she needed repeated. And well, when I said that, this was honestly the beginning of my doom. It was clear to me within the first 10 minutes of our phone call that I was going to need to repeat about every sentence that I needed to say to this woman. This led to me maybe coming off as exceedingly frustrated as I looked at the clock and realized I was going to have to put in overtime, and it was also very clear that she did not want to continue the call on another day when her hearing aids were going to be more functional. Now, keep in mind, I was 9 hours into a shift when this began, and I was really ready to go home. I dutifully handed my crush a note to go flag down a supervisor, and I thought I would be given permission to reschedule the phone call. But the trouble is that it was the supervisor's decision on whether we would be allowed to terminate for another day or not. And unfortunately, the supervisor making that decision on this day was somebody who did not like me, all because I got the final mentorship spot with the professor, and her daughter had applied for the same position, so she had a bit of a grudge against me, to say the very least. Well, the shifts had ended, and I was still plugging away, at which point the girl I was supposed to go to dinner with wrote me a note and asked me how much longer I was going to be. I quickly scribbled something that no one could read, and I went about my business. Back on the line, this older lady had proceeded to begin washing her dishes ears, making it even more difficult to hear, but there was no relief coming from my supervisor. Now, the mess up had finally arrived, and my colleague said that she didn't understand what I had written. I then quickly hit what I thought was the mute button, but instead it was the call merge button, as they were right next to each other, and I then turned to my crush, and I jokingly said that I wasn't sure who was gonna pass away first, this woman's hearing aid or the woman herself. Now, knowing that whatever higher power you may believe in has a sense of humor, I'm sure you can guess what happened next. This older woman suddenly got the hearing of an owl and heard my ill-timed joke that I said to my friend. She then proceeded to start yelling at me for having the manners of a heathen and the training of a hillbilly to wish that she would pass away. Now, no matter how hard I tried to explain, she now could suddenly hear everything, but still simply did not want to use her ears, and instead she proceeded to ask for the name of my direct supervisor, as well as the person running the project, and that she was going to call and complain about me the next day. She then slammed the phone in my ear, and I received a lecture from the supervisor who did not let me end the call. Now, as you can imagine, dinner was ruined, and we did not go out and have a good time like I had planned, but instead I spent the next 24 hours or so concerned that I was about to lose my mentorship and my job. 2 days later, the director of the project and the professor who was mentoring me called me into his office. He then proceeded to play back about 10 minutes of the phone call before letting me say anything to defend myself. He then asked me to answer one question for him. He asked me how I lasted that long and why I had not alerted my supervisor to this problem, because he had spent about 90 minutes earlier in the day talking with this woman about my poor conduct. Now, I was sure I was about to get fired, but instead he said that I don't get paid enough for this stuff and that I handled that like someone with professional training. He did admonish me to make sure I hit the mute button instead of the merge button next time, and that I might want to consider taking shorter shifts on days that I had to work the senior project. Well, it turns out that I didn't know that this entire call had been recorded as part of our quality control, and he was able to legitimize that I hadn't done anything wrong. And from then on, I was no longer able to be on the same shift with a supervisor who refused to end that call. Needless to say, I never expected that a 15-second joke could have cost me one of the most important professional relationships of my life. Yeah, I'm sure that was like super stressful on the day of, because you were convinced, yeah, I'm about to lose my job, and all over a stupid joke. Like, seriously, that supervisor really should have stepped in. So good for you for keeping your job and at least having a manager who has some brains inside of their body, because if you got fired for that, that honestly would have been absolutely awful. An entitled Karen makes my job a living nightmare as she picks up her to-go order right when our kitchen was about to close, and I've honestly never been more annoyed by somebody in my life. Here's what happened. 2 nights ago, a customer calls for a to-go order. My boss, manager, and owner answers the phone, and the customer asks for a very specific taco that isn't on our menu. But my boss, knowing how to make them, he decided to go out of their way to make them for the customer. The boss explains the ticket to me because I've never heard of that kind of taco before, and told me that he decided to start introducing new items on the menu just to try and stay in the game. So he clearly wanted to keep up with the 2 other Mexican restaurants in the area that I work in. So the order is ready, and the boss told the customer that the order would be ready within 10 to 15 minutes. And so we start to wait. After 20 minutes, the customer doesn't show up. Then 40 minutes pass and the customer is still nowhere to be found. Then 1 hour passes and then 2 hours. And of course, my boss isn't pleased with the customer because they put in all that extra time and effort for those tacos all for nothing. 1 minute before closing, the customer calls in and she wants her order. So I explained that her order had been sitting there for hours and that the kitchen is already closed and that we couldn't get her new tacos. She says it's okay and she wants them, and then she pulls in. To make sure I'm not making a mistake by selling those tacos, I asked my boss and he told me that it was okay. Now keep in mind, I'm in Missouri and it was freezing cold outside. Since we offer curbside pickup, we have to take the food outside to the parking lot. Now tell me why this idiot takes her time on her phone, texting and making numbers on the calculator, and then back to texting someone instead of getting the stupid card so that she could pay. I mean, I thought my thoughts were gonna freeze over before she even pays for her food. I see her acting kinda sketchy because she would be on her phone and then reach for her purse, and then she would reach for the steering wheel and then back to her phone. She grabbed something that looked like a card and extended her hand to give it to me in exchange for her food. But instead, she grabs the bag and starts opening the food without giving me the card. In my head, I was thinking, this idiot is gonna act like something's wrong with her food after she took so long to pick it up? Like, are you kidding me right now? She then dismisses the bag, looks at her phone, and again kind of reaches for the steering wheel and backs out. Then she asked me for a side of guacamole and sour cream. Now at this point, the kitchen had been dismantled about 40 minutes ago for the weekly deep cleaning, and I had already told her over the phone that the restaurant was closed. So no, you can't get that. The kitchen is no longer in service for a while now. She then let out a deep breath and resigned, giving me her card. I go and cash her out, and when I'm back, she had her food spread all over the open passenger seat. I gave the card to her, and she did not even tip me as she went along her merry way. Now, it wasn't until after I was telling this story to my sister when I got home that I realized she probably was trying to run away without paying, and asking me for the side orders was her way of achieving that. But little does she know that if I could have gotten the side orders, I would have taken the bag with her food with me with the excuse of putting the sides in her bag, just so I don't give her more bags to carry, thus making things supposedly easier for her. But in reality, she was probably trying to pull some weird scam on me to try and steal the food when I went into the restaurant. Yeah, that's honestly super annoying across the board. Not only was this lady asking for items on the menu that didn't exist, but your boss, instead of telling her to take a hike and be like, no, we don't have that, what are you talking about? He decides that no, we're gonna go above and beyond and we're gonna make those tacos, even though they're literally not on the menu. Like seriously, that is just annoying for everybody involved. Because in my opinion, if you do it for one customer, trust me, it's gonna happen for others. And that's a really weird precedent to set for your employees to have to deal with. Like customer service is already like a coin flip as it is. You either have good people that come in and they treat you with respect, or they're just neutral, or you have people who are completely belligerent, or they're rude, or they're trying to steal from you like the lady from this story, which by the way, that's exactly what she was trying to do. You cannot convince me otherwise that she wasn't trying to scam you out of that food. And I'm also kind of convinced that she was stalling just to try and freeze you out. Like you pretty much picked up on this right away because she was clearly trying to like take her time and really make you miserable as she was supposedly looking through her phone and trying to get her card together. And that is honestly so rude and disturbing to do to somebody, like there's no good reason for that. And she also waited for her food for like well over 2 hours. Like who in their right mind would want those tacos after that? It's probably gonna be like this weird soggy mess, and it's not gonna be good at all. Like that really does sound disgusting. So across the board, this really sounds like a miserable thing to deal with, and I seriously hope you never have to put up with that ever again. Whether that's your boss putting new items on the menu all of a sudden, or even this weird Karen trying to steal this food from you in the middle of a snowstorm. My entitled Karen upstairs neighbor blocks both of my parking spots that I rent out by parking her station wagon there for over 4 months while she's out of the country. So I decided to get revenge by covering her car in dog poop for nearly 3 months. And as a result, when this lady came back, she not only ended up moving, but she was also forced to sell her car off as it was just so disgusting. And I've honestly never felt better about getting revenge in my life. Here's what happened. 15 years ago, I was living in a very large and expensive city in what had once been the servants' quarters of an extremely large Victorian house. The house was broken up into apartments that progressively grew larger and nicer as you went up, but I lived on the bottom floor with my significant other. After being there for about a year, we got a new upstairs neighbor, which ended up being not so great. Both my significant other and I worked in the hospitality industry, and as a result, we kept late hours but tried to keep it respectful with coming and going in the wee hours of the morning and night. My upstairs neighbors worked normal human hours, and when she wasn't working, she seemed to always be talking on speakerphone, as well as pacing around in heels on the hardwood floors. I've had neighbors with much worse habits, so I basically tuned it out. But apparently, our schedule was very inconvenient for her. Lots of complaints about the noise we made, the hours that we kept, as well as complaints about my dog, and kind of anything else that you could imagine. The landlord mostly liked us, so it never went too far, but still annoying. We probably could have coexisted like that for years. But one night, I got back from work, and there was a strange station wagon parked diagonally across both of our alley parking spaces, making it impossible to park even one other car there. One of the perks of having the least impressive of all the building's apartments was 2 parking spaces that the landlord included with our lease. He was really good about keeping other tenants from parking there, and we really appreciated it since parking in the neighborhood was expensive and not easy to find around the building. Everyone in the building was very well aware those spots belonged to us. We had occasionally let other people in the building park there if they were going out of town, or if they didn't mind being blocked in, like if they were out of town but leaving their car. We mostly commuted via bike, so usually both of our cars were there, but on this particular evening, we had both been been using our vehicles. We figured someone had parked there on accident and they would be back soon. But 2 hours later, the car was still there, so I called the landlord to see about getting it towed. Well, the landlord showed up and told us it was the upstairs neighbor's car and that she had left the country for the next 4 months. He also refused to tow the car because she was a tenant and he had no actual spine. So for 4 whole months, we were going to have to pay to park 2 cars. And every single time I had to take my dog out for a walk, I had to walk right past her car. And overall, this was honestly so enraging. And I've got to be honest, I was tempted to do some awful things. I wanted to slash the tires. I wanted to break the windshield and key the car. I wanted to put sugar in the gas tank. I mean, you name it, I honestly thought about it. But I also did not want to get in any legal trouble. And I definitely did not want to stack up even more bills on top of what is already going to be an expensive situation. So I thought to myself, what on earth do I do? How can I express my boundless rage without committing an actual crime? Well, about 3 weeks in, when I was out with my dog, and while I was passing her car, I basically saw red. Before I even realized what I was doing, I was smearing the dog droppings that I had just picked up all over the door handles, laughing like a lunatic. And after I did that, I kind of felt better. So you know what? I just kept doing it. That's right, for almost 3 months. Every single time I took my fairly large dog out to drop a deuce in the neighborhood, I rubbed all of it on that station wagon. And I got pretty creative with it as well. I made sure I got the door handles, the grill, the windshield wipers, crevices around the windows and sunroof, all up in the side mirrors and cracks in the doors, as well as the little gutters on the roof, as well as the locks and into the gap around the hood. I mean, if you can get to it without breaking in, I got to it and it was chock full of dog droppings. And since my city was pretty famous for its rainfall, the excess was regularly rinsed off, which hid away the absolutely incredible amount of dog droppings that was all up in that car, while also helping a dog dropping slurry get deep in the crevices and cracks. It was absolutely disgusting, and honestly, I felt pretty proud of myself. Now, I wasn't there to see her get into the car for the first time. I mean, neither of us really were, but I do know that I got home one night and the car was finally moved. She never spoke to or even made eye contact with either of us ever again, but I did see the car with a for sale sign around the neighborhood for several months before she moved out. That is seriously some disgusting but well-needed revenge in my opinion, because that lady seriously did that on purpose. Like, who in their right mind would park their car like that and then leave you on the lurch to have to pay for parking around the neighborhood? Like, that's not fair at all. You pay for those spots, and that landlord absolutely should have towed that car away. Like, that is literally his duty to make sure those spots are accessible. Otherwise, he should reimburse you for having to pay for it. So truly, with all things considered, good for you for getting back at this weird entitled Karen, because her behavior was absolutely unacceptable. And the fact that you had to put up with that in the first place is honestly completely mind-blowing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for turning my wife's family away at the door on Christmas after they violate our boundaries by bringing a dog to our house? Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, my wife and I have been together for more than a decade. In that time, her family has been awesome. The only exception to this are my wife's paternal aunt and uncle. The two have a tendency to do really odd things and then act like it's all just normal. For instance, a few years ago, they stood up during the middle of a family dinner, raised their hands like a ref holding up a champion boxer's hand, and announced that they were moving to the lake before sitting down. Now, there was no mention of what lake this was and no additional context. I mean, there was literally nothing. And only after what felt like an eternity, as we all stared at each other awkwardly, my wife's father asked which lake, which prompted his sister to begin bawling her eyes out and screeching about how we weren't being supportive. More recently, my wife and I bought a house in the same city as her parents, and so for the first time, we decided to host Christmas. The grandparents and parents are getting old, and we thought it would be a nice gesture. We made sure to send the invites a month in advance and followed up by text message with everyone who said they were coming. The only thing we asked though was that people not bring their pets. My wife has absolutely terrible dog allergies, which is to her own dismay as she desperately wants to foster a dog. Meanwhile, her aunt and uncle have a history of doing things like showing up with a literal pack of dogs they happen to be pet sitting last minute for. Now, I need to make sure that this is understood. The email was very clear on all of this. Well, cue Christmas Day day, with my wife's aunt and uncle showing up 2 hours late while also walking up their brand new Mastiff. When I opened the door, the dog started going nuts and howling, while her uncle scolded it to stop. I tried to politely explain that this wasn't acceptable and that they needed to leave, but my wife's aunt started crying and screaming about how mean I was being. Eventually they left, but on the day of and for the last few weeks since, I've gotten mixed reactions from both family and friends. I'm not on Facebook, but apparently my wife's aunt made a long post about how we ruin Christmas by forcing them to drive 2 hours for a Christmas dinner only to then turn them away heartlessly because they didn't feel comfortable leaving their new dog at home alone. Now, our immediate family is supportive. Both of my wife's grandmas thought that the scene was hilarious apparently, and my in-laws thought it was nice to finally see somebody stand up to the Looney Tunes duo, which is their term and not mine, but they still think that we should have found a way to allow them to stay even though they brought the dog. The other aunts, uncles, and cousins think that we went too far and we should have somehow compromised. So honestly, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills right now because I seriously am not sure if I'm the jerk in this scenario, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. No, of course you're not the jerk. These people are just being super weird. They read the email, they saw, oh yeah, we can come to this Christmas party, but they conveniently glazed over the fact that no dogs are allowed at this party. And honestly, that's on them. That is not on you or your wife at all. I mean, you made it very clear your wife has really bad dog allergies. It's not like you made this up all of a sudden just to punish people with pets. If anything, you're trying to mitigate a problem that obviously the aunt and uncle are the ones causing. So no, of course you're not the jerk. The aunt and the uncle are the real jerks in this situation, and the fact that they would try to paint you as the bad guy is more than enough proof to show that they're the bad people in this scenario and that you were just standing up for your boundaries. My manager asked me to pay for a refund that we had to issue, and at this point, I'm not sure if they're allowed to do this, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Last week, I was working a party of 50 people with one of my coworkers. The party had ordered banquet food, and anything else was cash bar, meaning that we had to start individual tabs for all drinks and any separate dinner orders. Now, let me preface this by saying that our point of sale system is really old. It is so old that we need separate card readers that are attached to the computer system via cables just to use the chips on the cards or swipe or even tap them. In some cases, for some cards, the tabs aren't made using their name. The system will label it as Visa cardholder instead, which I didn't realize as I just started at this place. And my coworker only informed me as we were going through tabs throughout the night, and I corrected the reference names accordingly as the customers orders more drinks. At the end of the shift and as people were cashing out, they looked over their bills and approved per usual. Well, yesterday my manager informed us that we needed to pay her $74 between the two of us because we rang up and charged the same card twice. Now, this was really confusing to me because for starters, why would I swipe the same card twice? And secondly, all three tabs came in at different times during the night and they all closed at different times as well. There was one instance where a card was swiped and then the friend of the person wanted to use a different card to pay. So we did sort it all out, and I even asked her to verify the last digits of the card so that we charged the right one. Prior to that, someone on a separate tab wanted to pay for one round of drinks that we had already rung in. So we transferred those set of drinks to a different tab. So the only thing that may have made sense is that the system copied the card to a different tab as we transferred one round of drinks over to the other. So I really need to know, is this legal to be asking me to pay for a refund that the restaurant issued for 2 out of the 3 drink tabs? There was no food on these, but there was just coffee, some soda, and some beers, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, it sounds like your manager is being super sketchy with you. If this was all refunded and corrected, then why on earth is she trying to make you pay for it? That is seriously insane to me, and it really sounds like they're trying to take advantage of you. Because from the sounds of it, the charge didn't go through. So seriously, what is your manager's problem? What are they upset about? It's not your fault the system sucks. That is clearly on them for not upgrading it. So in my opinion, it really seems like they're trying to take advantage of you and your coworker and basically pin something on you that you did not intentionally try to do. Because from the sounds of it, you didn't do anything wrong. And it really seems like everything was worked out despite what the manager's trying to imply. My employee at my tanning salon accuses me of scamming our other employees that I have, all because my weekend closer makes $2 more an hour than everybody else. So I decided to get some malicious compliance, and as a result, that girl apologized for her behavior and realized that she was better off not having that extra pay. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of of background, I own a tanning salon and it's open from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night every single day. There are usually 5 to 6 girls working part-time there, and the pay is $12 an hour plus cash commissions on things that they sell. And that's for items like packages or lotions or stuff like that. It's worth noting also that it's a small non-chain business in a college town. All of the paychecks are kept in a drawer in individual envelopes with the employee's name on them, and it's also taped shut. They pick up their envelope on payday, and it has worked out well except for one instance. One employee decided to open everybody else's envelopes to see their pay, and she was livid that one girl was getting paid $2 more an hour. Now, instead of just asking me about it, she decided to blast the employee group chat and accuse me of ripping them off. Now, before you think the same thing, it's worth noting again that this is a college town with all college-age workers, which has meant for my particular salon that it's very hard to consistently have someone who wants to close weekends. They are all usually going home or having plans or they want to study, and I try to be super accommodating, and I work around everybody's schedule to the best of my ability. If someone says that they can't work, then I just don't question it. I just accept it and then I plan accordingly. So the reason this girl made a little bit extra was because she offered to close both days every weekend, mostly because she didn't mind. She didn't want as many week hours, so I offered to pay her a little extra because it was so difficult a lot of the times to schedule that. Plus, those 2 days can be a little slow, so commissions are usually not as good. Now, I guess the girl who snooped around never even bothered to look at the schedule to see if there was maybe a reason that the girl made a little bit more. So I decided to maliciously comply with some petty revenge of my own. And that's when I decided to explain the situation to all the girls. I told the snooper that since she was right, and since I was a total ripoff, I would make sure to fix it right away. So I started scheduling both the snooper and my weekend closer every weekend night for the next 3 weeks. I really only needed one person working, but I had done a terrible wrong that needed to be made right. And of course, the snooper would be getting the extra pay. Now, I would have done this a lot longer, but she apologized and said that she was totally fine going back to how it was because she wanted her weekends back, and the extra pay wasn't worth it. And I guess we could have decided that together if she had just talked to me in the first place, but instead she jumped to some weird conclusions about me and made assumptions that were definitely not true. Wow, that employee is seriously messed up. While I personally don't think there's anything wrong with discussing like how much you get paid at a job or anything like that, for her to go through someone else's paycheck and be like, wow, you're making $2 more an hour than me, only to then put the owner on blast like that is absolutely unacceptable. But I think what the original poster did is really clever, and it's a really clever way to basically show this employee that yes, they are in the wrong, because her actions and her comments were completely in the wrong, and it's really cool to see that she got the message in the end. My entitled mother is constantly putting herself in competition with everything I'm trying to do, constantly eating the groceries I buy for myself, as well as interjecting in obnoxious ways in my life. And honestly, I'm just so excited to get to college and get away from that woman, because at this point, I have seriously had enough. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm 16 years old, and I have recently started buying my own groceries and cooking for myself. I would have started sooner, but my truck is currently broke down, and my entitled mother has promised to teach me to cook for years and never did. So I finally just taught myself because I'm going to college out of state this fall. I get my groceries by going to my mentor and counselor who takes me to the grocery store, and this is because I only have a permit, and again, my truck is broke down, so I can only buy stuff every so often. My job is also babysitting, so I don't even make that much money. The babysitting is with my entitled mother because she won't let me get a different job, but holds the babysitting thing over my head. I have my wisdom teeth removal surgery tomorrow, and if you've never had your wisdom teeth removed, you're not allowed to eat anything starting the midnight the day of the surgery. You can't use a straw, you can only eat cold, soft foods until the bleeding stops, and this is followed by eating only soft, warm food when the bleeding is done. I went out with my mentor after school and I went to the grocery store. I have a credit card in my entitled mother's name and my dad's name, but they've both been given to me and I pay them. My entitled mother called me as I walked into the store and specifically said not to use my dad's card unless I go over $40 on her card. So I used her card for everything but a container of ice cream because I didn't want to chance it and have my card declined. So I bought a small container of ice cream, as well as those drinkable yogurts, some oatmeal, as well as some easy to make mac and cheese and mashed potatoes. I also struggle with texture issues, so the only cold thing that I could eat really was the ice cream and the yogurt. I get home and my entitled mom wants to know what I bought. So I showed her, being proud and whatnot, all before she sees my ice cream and says she's gonna try some. And I figured she was gonna do this, tomorrow after I opened it. But nope, she immediately opened it and took a big spoonful. I took a bite as well to make sure that I liked it, but immediately I put it back. I made a joke about eating it and then I went to take a nap. Well, I wake up to go grab some food and she takes my ice cream out of the freezer and grabs a spoon saying she's gonna try it. I point out that she already did and she just tells me that she didn't with a smirk on her face. So I go grab it because I bought it and it's for tomorrow after surgery. But she pulls away from me and starts eating several spoonfuls, just smirking at me. My dad has the decency to call her out, saying that she only said she was going to take a small bite. But that's when she mentioned she's gonna buy me another one, but I know that she won't, or she'll do it days after I need it. I told her that I bought it with my money, but she says that I used her card. When I pointed out that she literally told me to do that, she says that it was still on her card. She then tells me it's messed up, I only bought myself ice cream and not her. But I wasn't thinking about my mom at all. I reminded her that I already told her I was getting ice cream. I also reminded her that I was having surgery and there was little to nothing else I could eat. She then starts fighting with me for some reason, and she then says that she's going to eat everything after I go to sleep and that I can just deal with it. I then reminded her how childish she was being at 41 years old and that she was fighting with a 16-year-old about food that I bought. My dad yells at us to stop, but she just keeps going on about how if I take it upstairs, then I can see how good it is tomorrow. I once again asked her if she was really going to, at 41, eat all of a 16-year-old's food that was bought specifically because of a surgery. Well, my dad yells at me this time to just drop it, that I should go to sleep and stop being grumpy, and that I'm the one with the attitude. Now, this isn't even the first time that she's tried to compete with my groceries. For example, I bought my own body wash like 4 days ago because we haven't had any for a few months, and the next day, she comes in flaunting how she got her and my little sister body wash, and she's only doing this to try and make a big deal out of it. Another time is when I bought stuff to make dinner, and she tries taking charge of my cooking. And I told her not to put butter in my meal yet, for example, and that I have to get some stuff prepared first, and that I'm going to use a pan anyways because it's hard to mix stuff in such a small pot. Well, she puts the butter in anyways, causing me to rush, and as a result, the butter burns. And when I try to mix anything, I have to tilt the pot sideways. So as a result, I had to dump it because it was burnt, and she blamed me for burning it. But I told her that I was the one cooking, and that she needs to leave me alone, and that I was able to do my own thing, because when I cooked it, it wouldn't burn. But you know what? In 7 months, I'm gonna be gone from that house. And at this point, I simply can't wait to be away from my entitled mother. Wow, what an awful situation that you're stuck in. Because it really sounds like your mom is acting like a child. Like she is literally just messing with you left and right, almost like she's trying to ruin your experience of having any kind of independence in your life. Like it's pretty obvious to me that she just doesn't want you to grow up, and she's using this last little bit of time that you have left under her roof to basically make your life a living nightmare. And that is seriously so annoying. I mean, you are so under her thumb that you need to go to a mentor and a counselor just to get your own groceries. Like if that's not a clear indicator that she is failing as a parent, then I just don't know what is. So honestly, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, and hopefully this all gets better sooner than later, because your mom sounds incredibly obnoxious. But thankfully, you'll be at college soon, and hopefully your life can move forward from there. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.